The seagulls follow trawler. It's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you very much.
Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Talking nonsense. So I thought, no, enough's enough. Why should I put up with that? Don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Oh, yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday night, and you know what that means. Yes, it is the only place to be on a Friday night. It is Bustalgia night, and it is a very, very special one tonight. It is an exciting one. Is everyone in the chat excited? Because we're going to be talking about a very, very special subject here on the bus. Probably the most celebrated manager on the bus. Wait, what's that? What's that coming in the distance? Oh, look, it's the Martin O'Neill klaxon. Sound it there. It's on the screen. Because, yes, tonight is Martin O'Neill month part 1. We're doing the 2000-2001 season. We'll be looking at the treble-winning debut season of St. Martin himself. I'd say it's an exciting one. I'm excited, and I know somebody else is very excited. This man right here, Russell Boyce. How excited are you, mate?
Oh, sensational. I mean, he's just the main man. I'm glad he's got a klaxon. It's about time there's a real life embodiment of a klaxon now on the screen. It's just, it's so deserving. And Martin O'Neill month, I mean, this beats the month of December, you know, all that Christmas pish. This is Christmas for me. Martin O'Neill month, bring it on.
Oh, indeed. And Liam, my regular stalwart here on the Bustalgia bus over in Canada, how are you doing, mate? Are you excited about tonight?
Oh, brilliant. Aye, really excited, Phil. I know, Martin O'Neill, see the years, that was when we got our swagger back. I like that. It was a great time to be alive. Just one of the times I remember fondly. A lot of things, good things were happening around about that time. So I'm looking forward to digging into it.
I did. And just a little disclaimer for everybody as well. We're not going to bring up the Martin O'Neill klaxon graphic every time we mention his name. Because if we do, we did a 3-hour show last week. We'll end up doing a 5-hour show if we have to stop every time to sound the klaxon, essentially, and bring up the graphic.
One more time than now, though.
All right, one more time. For people just coming in just now, just arriving. Yes, indeed. In case you didn't know, it is indeed Martin O'Neill live. Sound the klaxon, everybody. We need to get a sound effect with it as well. We're working on that. But there you go, Martin.
Yes.
So, yes, we'll probably bring up again at the end of the show as well on the way out. But, yeah, folks, we're good to go. So, again, as always, as I'm the driver on a Friday night, I just need to remind everybody of all the good stuff that we like to see. You need to be able to subscribe, like, comment, share. If you're a Common Boise Bus member, you can do so as well, like many other people have. But, yeah, it's a YouTube loves an active channel. So, yep, any sort of interaction is a good interaction. So, yeah, that's what I call it, all that good stuff. Now,
all that good stuff.
Yeah,
we need to get a T-shirt with that on it. All that, the Boise bus, all that good stuff. I love it.
Yeah, so many interpretations of that one. That's definitely a slogan that we could work for this show. Definitely good. But something that's not always that good stuff is a bit of trivia to start the show, folks. Wee bit of trivia. You know, I need to bring you down, Russell, with this one. You know, remind you that there's a wee bit of trivia to start the show. Yep. So there's only 4 answers in this one. Which might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. I don't know.
That means the answers are hard.
Well, we'll see. So yeah, this one is related to something that happened this season. So in the Scottish Cup final, Jackie McNamara came off the bench and scored. But can you name all the other Celtic substitutes to have scored in a final this century? There are 4 other players. There you go then.
Repeat
so
that, mate. Repeat that.
So basically it's relating to Jackie Mack scoring in the final, coming on as a sub. There are 4 other Celtic players that came on as a substitute in a final during this century and have scored in said final. Can you name the 4 players? There we go. So that's your trivia. You've got one already. Do you wish to do it now? Do you want to wait to the end of the show?
No, I'm going to wait.
Okay, fine. That's fine. Yeah, we'll come back to the answers at the end of the show. It's always a wee brain teaser just to get people going as we start the show. But yeah, we will revisit the answers at the end as normal. Now, let's get into this, guys. Let's get Martin O'Neill month started. Now, as it turns out, we've actually been in this time zone twice on Bustalgia. We've done Euro 2000 and we've done the Chris Sutton one. Because obviously Chris Sutton and Martin O'Neill pretty much go hand in hand in Celtic's timeline. But we're back in the year 2000 again. Just can't escape that millennium bug. Just can't escape it, mate. We are back. So here we go. Summer of 2000. So let's just recap again, just for consistency reasons. I'll go over a couple of things again that I've already mentioned. But yeah, there might be a few stories there that we can look at again, because there's one in particular in England that's about to play a very significant role for us coming into this season. So, football winners, as usual, Champions League winners, no shock, it's always Real Madrid. It's just Real Madrid again. So, here we go. They're once again champions. They defeated Valencia in an all-Spanish final that was held in Paris. Morientes, McManaman, and Raul got the goals. I think I mentioned we did the Euro 2000 one. This is the Valencia team that Hugh Keevins described as the Aberdeen of Spain when they went to play Rangers in the group stages early in the season. They went on to get to the final and then got to the final again the next year. Not too bad for being Aberdeen.
Just wow.
Yeah.
Is this the one where McManaman scored the sort of the kind of scuffed sort of effort at Di Canio's West Ham goal?
Yeah, it's like comes for a corner and it drops it into the air and he volleys it from the edge of the area. Just sort of jumps up and volleys it.
The 2 feet off the ground thing like that. Yeah. Kind of like daisy cutters its way into the back corner, not like Di Canio's one for West Ham.
Oh, that was clean as you like, that one. Ridiculous. Might even been that season, the 99-2000 season. The Canio one as well. Might very well have been. The UEFA Cup, it wasn't the Europa League at that point, it was just the UEFA Cup. It was Galatasaray won it in the year 2000. They defeated Arsenal in an absolutely dire final ending 0-0. And after 120 minutes of football, they won it on a penalty shootout. Now, down in England, it was Man United that picked up the English Premier League title. The FA Cup, which we discussed in the Sutton episode, was won by Chelsea. Chris Sutton didn't even make the squad that day. But yeah, they defeated Aston Villa 1-0. Pretty dire final. It was the last one at the old Wembley before it was going to get knocked down. And of course, the League Cup final, as I said, very play a significant part for us. Martin O'Neill's Leicester and Neil Lennon, who was playing for them as well, and so was Steve Guppy. He was also playing in this final. They picked up the League Cup in the last ever final at the old Wembley. Matt Elliott, the very unlikely goal hero with a brace against Tranmere Rovers, the unlikely finalists, managed by John Aldridge, getting all the way to the final. But yeah, that was Martin O'Neill's second bit of silverware at Leicester, who, when you think about it, even then and there, you could see this guy's a real talent as a manager, because Leicester were just a mid-table Premier League team. I mean, he'd been obviously in the doldrums, the lower leagues for most of the 80s and 90s. He got them up into the Premier League in the 96-97 season and established them there, got them into European football, won 2 trophies with them. So, yeah, the signs were there right away. And funny enough, he's on our radar at this point in time as well after his achievements because, I'm obviously going to get to very soon. Now, why would we be bringing him in, though? Because everything that could go wrong in the 1990-2000 season for Celtic did go wrong. The league was won by Rangers. They absolutely cantered it in the end. I think it was 21 points. They pipped us to the title by 21 points there. Yeah, just a small margin. Rangers also won the Scottish Cup as well, thrashing Aberdeen in the final, despite Aberdeen being absolutely ranked rotten in that season. They got to both cup finals against Rangers and Celtic because they lost to us in the League Cup final as well, even though we salvaged one trophy from that season. It wasn't much to really shout about. It's a very unmemorable League Cup. The Tommy Johnston and Vidar Risev goals in the final. And the big winners around the continent were in Italy, it was Lazio picking up the title, Sven-Goran Eriksson's Lazio. Spain, it was Deportivo La Coruña with Juan Carlos Valeron as the talisman in the midfield. In Germany, of course, it was Bayern Munich. It's always Bayern Munich. In France, it was Monaco. Portugal, it was Sporting Lisbon. And in Holland, it was PSV Eindhoven. And as I mentioned earlier on, we had an international tournament as well that summer. France have just won Euro 2000, which means they now hold the World Cup and the Euros at the same time. A good time in the world of football, though, wasn't it, Russell? It was a very memorable time. A lot of memorable teams and players from that era, wasn't it? And yeah, we obviously covered Euro 2000.
Well, that era is just, it's phenomenal. The more you think about, the likes of Henrik at that time playing at Celtic was up there with this sort of level of player. This was the era where Zidane's, Rui Costa's of the world all became sort of Figos, all were entering their peak years. Do you know what I mean? And it was Henrik standing tall. And it was just, I think the standard at that point of the forwards, it was different to now. They're probably, technician-wise better, but I think the level of defender at this time as well was when this was probably the final sort of era where defenders could defend with a bit of naughtiness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was fair game. I think, the game's starting to soften a wee bit as time goes on, but at this point, I just think we should be so proud. Obviously we could talk about Henrik all night, but that era in particular, when you look at it, and you think Henrik was the guy who was holding his own, wearing a Glasgow Celtic jersey and a Sweden jersey, which is, again, an unfashionable international team.
Yep.
When you look at the big name players at that point in time, and the fact Henrik's name's right up there, just testament to him, I suppose.
It is. And Liam, obviously, Henrik made his big return at the end of the season and then at Euro 2000, taking the piss out of Italy, scored an absolutely fantastic classic Henrik goal where he rounds the goalkeeper. He's one-on-one, does that we find with a step over, bamboozles the keeper who goes to ground, and he just calmly goes around him, slows it away. It was a great goal, wasn't it, Liam? You knew he was back then at that point, didn't you?
Aye, brilliant. I remember there was a goal he scored as well, too, where he's back to the goal, where he was very close to the goalie, but it was like a back healer, like a deflection he did in front of the goal. And when you see him, usually when you see your players playing in a tournament like that, you're like, oh no, I hope they don't get injured. And, just watching Henrik play for Sweden in that tournament as well, just coming back to that leg break, and it was great. He just wanted to see that everything was okay, but also just wanted to make sure he gets off the park nice and safe, so he's coming back to us in one piece.
Well, interesting with that leg break as well, I'm sure we'll get into it, but what I didn't realise when I was doing the old homework and all that, Phil, was apparently even as far in as nearly just the end of September, there was still doubts about his full fitness.
Oh my God.
There was still doubts. So it says, when you watch it back, there were still reports that Henrik wasn't fully fit at this point, and he was still shutting people up with doubles, braces and hat-tricks left, right and centre. But there was still reports going around that he wasn't quite fully fit by September of the season we're about to cover.
Oh my
Which
God.
tells you, for him to be doing that to Toldo at Euro 2000 is a shambles, mate. Like, I think he sped up his return.
Aye. Oh, aye, definitely. He's got to get back.
He's forced it, but
definitely. He's back on absolute a vengeance in this coming season. We've got a whole section talking about Henrik because we can't ignore it this season. It's an unbelievable season. Now we're coming up to Russell's favourite bit of Bustalgia every week when he wants to take it to VAR, but it turns out, Russell, I've worked it out how Transfer Market do this, and I was like, why have they done that? It's inflation they've brought in, inflation. So if this transfer happened right now in 2022, this is actually what they would have paid. And it's like, just leave it like it was. So I went on like a calculator thing and was like, what is 15 million euros or 15 million pounds in like the year 2000 and to 2022, and it worked out at like 25 million euros, which I then converted, and came out as like 21 million pounds. And I was like, okay, that's more closer to what they've got here on this. And I was like, right. So that's why the transfer fees are all over the place. Graham was so 9 million. Aye. Yeah.
Because I was struggling to work it out. And it wasn't being cheeky at you. It was just genuinely going, nah, look, I can I can picture it on Sky Sports News, and I'm going, that's not right. I think it was, were we talking about one before?
I was like, Graham was so, you were just
Graham
like,
was so 9 million. Aye, 9 million pound. I was like, come on.
I looked up on Wikipedia. Lasso went for 5 million, but it turns out if that transfer had happened, that same transfer in 2022, that 5 million from the year 1997 would actually be 9 million in 2022 money. And it's just like, just leave it, transfer market as it is. Don't mess around with it. But yeah, I'm still going to put together the top 10 transfers anyway, just to give us an idea of what was going on at the time. So number 10 most expensive transfer was Jimmy Floyd-Hasselbank returning to the Premier League from Atletico Madrid to Chelsea. I say the fee they've got there is 20.25 million. It was actually 15 million at the time.
Aye.
Yeah.
I can remember it being 15. I remember it.
It was when I looked at that one, I went, can he be? It's not 20 million. Hasselbank would not go for that. I mean, he was a fantastic player, but it wasn't that price. But it turns out it's 50 million. And that's when I began to use a calculator, like on Google, to work it out. And yeah, that's how I figured it out. But yeah, Jimmy Floyd-Hasselbank is the number 10 most expensive transfer that summer. Matias Almeida from Lazio to Parma, 20.7 million. Claudio Lopez, of course, just played in the Champions League final with that Valencia team. He's moved to Lazio for 20.7 million. David Trezeguet, who's going to cross our paths in a couple of next week's episodes. Monaco to Juventus, 20.9 million. Savo Milosevic, Real Zaragoza to Parma, 22 million. I forgot he had a Real Zaragoza spell. I thought he went Aston Villa straight to Parma. I forgot he had a spell in Spain in Savo. Because I remember him playing for Villa in the 90s in the Premier League, but
when he was young.
Totally forgot about that one. I do remember this transfer though, Mark Overmars, Arsenal to Barcelona, 26.3. They also signed Emmanuel Petit that season. They snatched the two of them away from Arsenal. Nicolas Anelka, speaking of Arsenal, he after leaving Arsenal, going to Real Madrid, didn't work out for him too well, so he goes to PSG for 31 million this summer. Gabriel Batistuta went from Fiorentina to Roma for 32.5 million. Hernan Crespo was the number 2 most expensive transfer in the world. Parma to Lazio for 51.1 million. So that's Sven-Göran Eriksson's mighty Lazio team that he's just joined. And Luis Figo was the world record transfer at that point as well. Very controversial transfer too. Barcelona straight to Real Madrid, 54 million quid.
So that was definitely 37.5. Like 100%. Because then Zidane broke it the year later and he was 48.
Yeah, it's inflation that they've used.
Got for us.
I know, but it's in the right order. It's just the prices are just a bit out of whack. But yeah, Figo was the big transfer, and it was a very, very, very controversial one. In Spain, that's equivalent of like over here doing like Rangers straight to Celtic and vice versa. Totally. Like Real Madrid to Barcelona and vice versa. It's like unheard of over there. Unheard of.
And the spending in Serie A at that point was wild, eh?
Mental.
But it was like, I know the league, it kind of. The bubble burst eventually with Serie A. They had all overspent, right across the board. They'd overspent. The interesting one with the Batistuta from Fiorentina to Roma, that was definitely like 22, 23 million quid at the time, right? But he was 32 at that point.
Aye. But Roma won the league this coming season.
So paid for it.
Aye.
It was almost like when Ferguson signed Van Persie, remember from Arsenal?
Yeah, that's right. Aye, he did.
He was 30, but he knew he'll win us the league that year, so I can sign off with a league title because the rest are dog meat. But I think definitely like that is a 32-year-old going for that sort of money. Then that's nuts. 22 years ago.
I know. At the time when I was doing that, I was like, that's still insane, even if the prices are obviously inflated on that website. And I was like, that's still mental, because he was in the twilight of his career at that point. But what a goal machine he was. Like, youngsters nowadays do not understand how good Batistuta was. Like, you want to talk about the absolute all-round forward. My God, he was a freak of nature, that guy. But I always associate him with Fiorentina. But he did have another spell. He had a spell at Roma, and he even played for Inter Milan, I think, right at the very end of his career. But you always think him in the purple shirt of Fiorentina. That's the one you associate him with, without a doubt. But I was some player, man. Absolutely amazing number 9. Superb. Now, we've good pop culture headlines just to say where we were, what was going on, and like music and so forth. So, Martin O'Neill joined us on the 1st of June 2000. Number 1 in the chart, singles chart. Billy Piper was number 1. The future Mrs. Chris Evans. Number 1 in the album chart. Whitney Houston was number 1 in the album chart. And the number 1 film at the box office, if you fancy going to the cinema. If Martin O'Neill fancied going to the cinema that day to celebrate his move to Celtic, Gladiator was the big film in the summer of 2000. It was number 1 at the UK box office. Tea in the Park that year, your big headline acts were Ocean Colour Scene, Iggy Pop, All Saints were there, Macy Gray, Fun Loving Criminals, Gomez, Supergrass, and even Lulu appeared. But the 2 big headline acts each night on the Saturday and Sunday main stage, I had the depressing one, Moby and Travis. It's not the most upbeat one, is it, Russell? To be fair, with that one. Yeah.
And by the way, Phil, big Celtic fan and Gladiator, huh? Tommy Flanagan.
Oh, of course.
And Gladiator as well, and big Celtic fan.
Nice eyes. I've only seen Gladiator a couple of times. One of those films that's really long to sit through, but it's a good film. It's iconic, man. But it smashed the box office this during the summer of 2000. It's number 1 at the chart from like the start of May right through to like the end of August. It just is a mad run it goes on. But iconic film. Are you not entertained? Remember that was the famous line, wasn't it? It's a classic film.
Giacomacchis.
Oh man,
chaos indeed.
That should be a celebration next time he scores. Are you not entertained? You should definitely say that.
Got that vibe, definitely.
Oh, it definitely does. Definitely. Now, Glastonbury as well was headlined by the Chemical Brothers. Travis were headlining there as well. David Bowie was also headlining though, because it's a 3-day event at Glastonbury.
It's fucking unbelievable. That headline slot by Bowie. Do you know? So only like 2 of the videos have ever been like, or 2 of the songs I should say from that were like released. The whole rest of the set was kept me, but because of lockdown, whoever it is that's in charge now of Bowie's library released it to the BBC so they could put it on one Friday night. I think it was Glastonbury weekend. Right. So like, because obviously the world's in lockdown at the time still, whatever, in 2020. So the BBC's like Friday night that night or Saturday night, whatever one it was the full Bowie set. Now that was the first time anyone's like set eyes on that since maybe when it was first on the telly. But I don't think they were playing full sets by bands at that point. I watched it as if it was like the modern day, you know, now where you could just push what artist you want. It's like, so it felt like that. And I watched it, I just thought, that is just a guy at the, the year 2000, he comes out, he's wearing a big long jacket down to his knees, his hair's all long, swishing down, he's just the king of cool, of cool. And by the year 2000 as well, he's just like, I know you think I've went all drum and bass in the 90s and stuff, but who wants to hear a hit? He's like, because I've got just so many now. Yeah. And he just takes you through the genres. It is an iconic Glastonbury appearance, if not the best Glastonbury set I've ever seen.
Is that good, that level? Wow, nice one. I mean, I saw the Paul McCartney one this year. That was actually Sky Plus. That was phenomenal. That one, but I'll need to see the David Bowie one. I'll need to find that somewhere.
Honestly,
Russell, did you ever see him when I saw him in Toronto when he was doing the thing with 9 Inch Nails? Did you see that? Right. It was brilliant. They did a thing where they combined both bands, and so what happened was both 9 Inch Nails come out as 9 Inch Nails. They play 2 songs. Next thing you know, their players start swapping in and out for Bowie's band, and they started. So he'll do 2 9 Inch Nails song, then he plays a Bowie song, and Bowie comes out and starts singing it with him, and then he did a 9 Inch Nails song together, and it kept overlapping until it was just Trent Reznor and all of Bowie's band, and they were still going back and forward doing each other's songs. It was an incredible concert, and just something about Bowie, you know, just try something different again, you know. No ego, just there.
It's inspirational indeed.
Yeah, a pop culture icon without a shadow of doubt. Now, some of the other acts that appeared at Glastonbury, it's not quite Jeremy Corbyn after that one last week. That was incredible. But yeah, appearing at Glasgow was Happy Mondays, Embrace, Reef, the Pet Shop Boys, Willie Nelson had the Legends slot on the Sunday night. The Blue Tones, Counting Crows, Macy Gray, Jules Holland, and Cypress Hill were some of the other big acts that appeared at Glasgow. And here's a good pop culture headline as well. If you're a fan of the TV show Friends, this is the year that the 6 actors, Jennifer Aniston, Lisa Kudrow, David Schwimmer, Matt LeBlanc, Matt Perry, and Courtney Cox, signed a 2-year deal with NBC to do another 2 seasons, and we're going to get paid a whopping $750,000 each, plus royalties, per episode. I think to this day, that must still make them the most expensively paid TV actors in history. I can't think of anyone else in the time since Friends would have got paid. No. I mean, even guys like James Gandolfini and Sopranos wouldn't have got that for an episode, you know.
Charlie Sheen?
Would that be 2.5 Men? Aye.
Yes, I think he broke it. I'm sure it was him who broke that record. Charlie Sheen. I
can remember the headlines at the time because there was, I think it was Courtney Cox was married to David Arquette, who was a Hollywood actor, and she was earning more than him, and she was on TV and he's in Hollywood films because he was in the Scream films and stuff at the time. And but yeah, it was like $1 million that was getting reported, which it probably works out at. You know, it was base price $750,000 they were getting, plus all sorts of royalties. But yeah, the 6 of them became the highest paid TV actors in the world at that point. I've seen money, and they'd signed a deal to do another 48 episodes. So you do the mathematics, guys, because that's a lot. That's a shitload of money. Fair play to them. But yes, Friends was like a phenomenon of the era as well. So,
no, have you heard that story where he spent a night out in Glasgow and ended up in a scheme or something like Easter House, and they were going to try and kidnap him?
Who done that?
David.
You dig deep into that one. There's a whole story.
David Arquette
was in Glasgow. No, Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Sheen. Oh, he would do. He going what happened to him in the last few years. You can imagine him doing something mental like that.
I'd love a swally with him.
Oh, would you survive it? Fucking hell. He's pretty hardcore, mate.
Yeah, I'd probably be all right.
He probably would. He probably would. Charlie Sheen. I'll need to look into that one then. That sounds like something that only he would get up to, man. It sounds like the type of hijinks that would just happen to him.
Mad.
Oh, they find it there. But anyway, guys, that wraps up the sort of pop culture and what's going on with the football. But let's now home in on Martin O'Neill's arrival at Celtic, because, yeah, it has been another broken season the year before, which was a running theme at the time because the Wenger season didn't quite go according to plan. And obviously the John Barnes season really didn't go to plan at all. So it's like it's time to really, push the boat out now. And as the story goes, Martin O'Neill, he stood on the steps outside Celtic Park on that day, on the 1st of June. It'd been raining that day as well. And he, as he does, because he's very much like, he first of all, he thanked all the fans for waiting patiently. And he talked about the rain. He was like, I know you've had to stand in the rain, but of course he said the famous line, I will do everything I possibly can to bring some success to the football club. And he certainly did. But as usual, he's always understated and always plays it down. But my God, he certainly brought some success. So the story goes that Man United manager, former Rangers player Alex Ferguson, was like the middleman in brokering this deal, because he phoned Martin O'Neill around about the time and just said, would you be interested in the Celtic job? And Martin O'Neill was like, obviously, like, taken aback by it, and I don't know if he'd really given it any thought at the time, but it was one of those where it was put to him. He thought, yeah, I probably would, because Dermot Desmond didn't actually know Martin O'Neill, but Alex Ferguson obviously was sort of a friend of Dermot Desmond's that knew Martin O'Neill, so he actually phoned him to initially gauge if he'd be interested in it. And as Martin O'Neill's quote says, I got a call initially from Alex Ferguson saying, would I have interest? That essentially the owner, Dermot Desmond, would like to speak to me. I consequently found out Dermot knew Sir Alex very well at the time, but didn't know me at all. And really, Sir Alex was the one that actually recommended me for the job. I went to see Dermot and the board members in London, and for once in my life, I must have done all right in the interview. Again, modest as always from Martin O'Neill, Russell.
Well, but there's two. I think there was a bit of. Remember, Alex Ferguson was meant to retire in 2002.
Yes, I do remember that. Yep.
I think O'Neill's now. Ferguson is now doing his joining up the puzzle, and I think at the time, if you remember, they thought O'Neill was definitely in the running to succeed Alex Ferguson, And I think Ferguson's putting him there to go at, like, this is now a big club with serious expectation. You've got a couple of years, because Ferguson, I'm sure it was 2002. He's meant to retire.
That's correct.
I'm sure, and then he changed his mind. But I think there was a bit of an idea behind all this from Fergie, that send him up there, see how he does for 2 years. If he does what I think he'll do, I'll recommend him to the board. I think that was a bit of a plan at the time, honestly, I do.
Yeah.
I definitely remember the story about Ferguson was thinking about retiring in 2000 and he stuck around till 2013, so he definitely went back on that side. But you can see the logic in that, because think about it, Ferguson was very instrumental in picking his successor. So yeah, it would make sense, that maybe he was.
But this retirement as well, he'd called it early.
Aye.
And then it was like at the last minute he changed his mind. But I think going into that season, he thought he was retiring. It wasn't like he said he was retiring, then he changed his mind. I think Ferguson had done kind of what he did in his actual last season. He said, look, I'm retiring at the end of this campaign. And so I'm convinced that there was something between him, Desmond, and O'Neill that was like, you go there, I'll recommend you there. And then if he does well, you've got to let him go because he's going to replace me. I think there was a bit of that.
Sean Ball was saying apparently Leeds were sniffing around Martin O'Neill at the time and he turned them down, which is interesting because that would have been David O'Leary's Leeds or George Graham Leeds manager at the point. But yeah, it's around about that era. But also, am I saying, Liam, do you remember this story? Was Gus Hiddink not like the front runner and it was Dermot Desmond that obviously made the call that, no, I want it to be Martin O'Neill, and that's how we went in that way. But I can remember it being very strongly linked that it was going to be Hiddink. And I think it was the second time that Hiddink's name was strongly linked to us because I think he was in the running with the Janssen one as well. But yeah, it worked out all right in the end, didn't it, Liam, when you think about it?
I mean, that was certainly the rumours. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what we would have done with Gus Hiddink as well. I mean,
he'd have done well. He was a good manager.
Appointment, sliding doors.
But you look at the ambition then as well. See, if that's the two fucking names we're arguing about at boardroom level, that's a club that's got its shit together again, isn't it? Like, that is a club that's seen the light, is it not? Like, they've went, right, it's time to compete again. Here's the two names that we're left with. Martin O'Neill or Gus Hiddink. I like the thought of both. That is proper competition.
Hiddink, I say, would have definitely done really well. I mean, is he still managing now, Gus Hiddink?
No.
He
was photographed. I don't know if you've seen it. He was photographed shaking hands while the Australia players at the training.
But he was Australia manager at one point, wasn't he? Yes.
Because Aaron Moy was shaking his hand, and a lot of, Celtic fan sites were sharing the photo on Twitter, getting giddy. You know what I mean? But aye.
Yeah, well, Aaron Moy gets a mention tonight on Bustalgia. There we go. We've come full circle with that one. But less of him. More Martin O'Neill, Klaxon, please. But Russell, obviously, one thing I want to really concentrate on with O'Neill, and it's been apparent over the years when you've watched him in the manager game, and even players that he's worked with, and then they've became managers. I see Brian Clough, so much of Brian Clough and Martin O'Neill, and the way it's trickled down to people that have become managers like Lambert and Lennon and so forth. But I mean, Clough, again, for all the youngsters who don't know, you go and watch like YouTube videos of Clough doing interviews and stuff. The mannerisms, everything about it. There's so much that Martin O'Neill has learned from him because he was obviously in that Nottingham Forest team that conquered Europe twice in a row in 79 and 80. And he's just going back and listen to any interviews that Brian's done. Phenomenal. A guy who was very ahead of his time. I mean, he talks about in the 70s saying how television will ruin football. There's interviews out there saying that, we're heading towards a period where TV will ruin football. And he was obviously bang on now when you think about it with the way football is in the UK, the way Sky Sports and BT Sport and all these different companies with the money that they've pumped into it, the bubble's got to bust eventually. So it's things like that. But yeah, you could definitely see it with O'Neill and the mannerisms and so forth, can't you, Russell?
Well, I think there's more than that. I think even the dress code. I think when you look at Martin O'Neill's opening sort of introduction to the actual Celtic sport at Celtic Park is before the friendly against Bordeaux. When he runs out as opposed to just walking out. He's got his boots, he's got the white socks tucked over the trackies, he's in the jersey with the sort of rugby shirt collar, the sleeves rolled up. And you're thinking, like, if it was a Halloween costume, we dressed up as Brian Clough. And I think there's loads of... But I just think that shows you how big Martin O'Neill, you know, we look at as probably someone who you can't imagine being that heavily influenced by someone else.
Yeah.
But it just shows you if you're that big a character, you're still open to being influenced and being molded by, or having mentors. And undeniably, I think it trickled down. I think Paul Lambert, we've seen dress a bit up like Martin O'Neill, or is it Clough? I mean, I think it's just that sort of effect these certain massive characters can have on also huge personalities within their own right. And I don't think he's done it to try and rip him off. I just think it's maybe a subconscious doff of the cap to it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's even realizing he's doing it. Probably it's just that's how he's probably pictures how a manager should be, the ultimate, and that's then how it turns out dressed like and stuff. And you're absolutely right. His mannerisms as well were similar too.
Aye. Well, there's one there, Liam. Like we've talked about it, myself and Russell, during our adventure with the Worlds and the European Cups. We did the World Cups and Euros. Martin O'Neill was obviously doing punditry for BBC and ITV on some of these, and there was some points during those where he obviously shot down Robbie Williams. There's one that's out there. I can't find it, but I remember seeing it at the time where Alan Hansen had the balls to keep talking over him, and he eventually just put Alan Hansen in his place. It's obviously the one with Vieira and Cannavaro. But William, if you've seen the famous Brian Clough interview with Don Revie, sat right next to him just after he's been sacked for Leeds. Again, it's that sort of calm way. He's quite cutting in how he does it. But delivery. He doesn't even raise his voice, it's delivery and everything. And he's like, it's again with O'Neill, like the way he dealt with Vieira and Cannavaro, where they're having a wee bit of a laugh at him. And he's like, you know, I've won 2 European Cups. How many of these guys won? 0? You know, the way he done it. And the Robbie Williams thing, that was amazing at France 98. But you see it in interviews as well, don't you, Liam? Just the way he just deals with them.
I think that's it. That's another influence, O'Neill, for Clough to O'Neill.
Yeah.
Clough, that one with Don Revie. There was also one as well where he sat with Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay at the time.
On Michael Parkinson. Yep.
He started verbally sparring with Muhammad Ali, and it was brilliant. You know, so you can see how that sort of influence rubbed off on Martin O'Neill as well too, right? That acerbic nature. Like, I liked his punditry and I liked his sarcasm. Like, I preferred his to Strachan's, right? I think Strachan tried to pick up on that vibe, but he came here as a wee bit too nippy. Whereas, savage, you know, calculated. You know,
do you know the thing is as well, Liam? Martin O'Neill was kind of almost a bit of a celebrity when we were getting him at this point, because he'd done World Cup '98 and kind of really arrived as like the best pundit by a country mile.
Yeah,
and I think that was with Des Lynam. And then by Euro 2000, I think they're doing, is it Des Lynam? Maybe Gary Lineker's involved hosting at this point. I think he's
transitioning in it. Aye.
And O'Neill by this point is now, and it's so funny because you think like, you know, this is at this point, this, you know, terrestrial TV punditry was then the equivalent of like, I don't know, a Sky Sports or a BT Sports punditry now. And the main man, like the one that you go box office when he's on, is now the Celtic boss, but also a manager at the peak of his powers.
Yep.
Not known for his punditry, but is also a guy lifting trophies, as we speak about. But he was a bit more celebrity than I think people, maybe youngsters now, would realise at the time. Martin O'Neill's status was a lot higher, I think, than what people realise, not just because of what he'd done at Leicester City, but he was a bit of like, you know, when it comes to the punditry side, he was a bit like an entertaining, you know, what a Roy Keane now would be, something like that. You know, it was like if Martin O'Neill's on, you almost, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if the BBC did a best bits of Martin O'Neill after, you know, Euro 2000. That's the sort of, you know, the adulation he was getting. And I'm sure when he joined Celtic, he then fucked off for the 2 weeks of Euro 2000 straight after.
Did Euro 2000 kicks off on the 9th of June. He's appointed the Celtic manager on the 1st of June. So he was Celtic manager. And of course, he comes back with Yusuf Haran. He comes back with him. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because we'd have seen him out there when he was doing his punditry, a wee scouting mission. So that worked out really well for us as well. But I came back with Yusuf Haran in a bag, basically just like, come on, you're coming with me to Celtic. Kidnapped him. You're coming. And by the way, just on the subject of Brian Clough, one of my favourite ones is, you ever seen when he presents Trevor Francis for the Player of the Year award, tells him to get his hands out his pocket? It's phenomenal.
Oh,
Trevor Francis
brilliant.
was on stage with his hands in his suit pocket. He shakes his hands like, "Oh, congratulations, young man. Get your hands out your pockets." And then he just continues into what he was going to say. It's just so faultless the way he does it. And it's like, that's just so Brian Clough, you know, just brilliant.
Just
the
a
way
wee
he does
put down in the midst of it. Yeah,
Aye.
that's good. That's good. That is
That's
good,
one of my
isn't it?
favourite ones, old Cloughie. But yeah, so Martin O'Neill, say he's in the door. And as he's taken over a very much broken squad. We've won the League Cup, yes, but we finished a very, very distant second behind Rangers, 21 points. And of course, we were humiliated in the Scottish Cup, getting knocked out by Inverness Cali Thistle. And we talked about that. We were doing the Moravchik one. That is the game when obviously John Barnes got his jotters and Mark Viduka had a half-time strop. When Ian Wright has talked about it in interviews since then, saying he's never seen anything like it. Viduka just walked out his dressing room and just went, "Fuck this," threw his boots down and was like, "I'm not going back out there." And an argument just breaks out between Viduka and Barnes right in front of the whole team. And yeah, just totally unprofessional stuff. But yeah, that's what we're coming off the back of here. Because Martin. Now, the first thing is, obviously, Viduka is one of the first ones shipped out right away. £6 million to Leeds United. He takes that £6 million and brings in Chris Sutton. Of course, we discussed that in the Sutton episode. There was people questioning that, thinking, you know, Viduka, he had attitude problems. Is Sutton going to be the same? But, you know, Sutton had the right type of attitude. You know, he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Viduka, just a bit of an arse at times. Talented player, but, you know, just not the attitude that you would have wanted. I don't think under O'Neill he would have got on too well with him. So it was the right move to get Viduka out the door. Because Viduka wanted to go. Viduka saw us as a stepping stone. Yeah. You're talking about stepping stone FC quite a lot. Mm-hmm. Russell, that was definitely a stepping stone FC one, that one with Mark Viduka. He wanted out. The League Cup final, one of the goal heroes, Vidar Risev, off on loan, 1860 Munich. Ayel Berkovic, he was sent out on loan during this season to Blackburn Rovers. And of course, the infamous Rafael Felipe Scheidt, he was sent back to Brazil to Corinthians on loan. He did actually play a couple of games this season, but yeah, this is before the days of transfer windows, so players could move outside of, like, you know, in like October and stuff like that. So I think Rafael Scheidt was sent back to Brazil with around about October, November time, but he did actually play a couple of games for us during this season, which is just surreal to think, because I don't have many. I only played with 3 games overall in the Celtic shirt. So yeah, one of the biggest wastes of money in Celtic history, without a shadow of doubt. Now,
did O'Neill not take his squad number?
He did, O'Neill always has 31 on his tracksuit, and Rafael Scheidt was number 31.
Aye, because he says he was a better player, so he took his squad number.
Yes, he probably was. Yeah. Even at that age, Martin O'Neill would have been better. Oh, man.
I didn't know that. But I mean, that's funny, because I did always find it peculiar that Martin O'Neill had a squad number.
Aye, because even like Ange and I don't have like squad numbers on their trackies, you know.
Yeah. Why would they? Aye. I always found that peculiar, Martin O'Neill, because there was always 31 there.
It must be a special number to him, because I've seen pictures of him when he was Sunderland and Aston Villa manager, and he's on like the training ground, and he's got their trackie on, and he's got number 31 on it. It must be like a significant number. So I wonder.
Very interesting.
What age was he, do you think, when they won the European Cup with Nottingham Forest? Was he 31 years old, maybe, or was he younger than that? I wonder. There's got to be a significance to the number. It's got to mean something to him if he's always using it. But yeah, because back in the day when he played, they didn't have the squad number. It was just 1 to 11. So it has to have some sort of significance. Maybe somebody in the chat will come in and tell us. Maybe they've read a story about it somewhere. But what's 31? Why is it significant to Martin O'Neill? But just going back on the Clough comparison, because obviously one thing that Clough and his teams were famous for, it wasn't just all about ability. That was one thing. But a very, very important thing was camaraderie. Having that like mix in the dressing room of like they all bonded. They were a really good unit. As well as just you've got some great individual players, which Celtic did have in the years running up to O'Neill joining, Larsson and Moravchik, Viduka as well. They were all individually good players, but there was something just missing. And I say that Nottingham Forest team that O'Neill played in under Clough, they were all brilliant mates. I mean, there's actually a documentary on Netflix, the I Believe in Miracles documentary about their European Cup exploits. And when you go back and watch it, they were just, it's like the Lisbon Lions for us. They were just such a close unit. So I think O'Neill recognised right away he had to get the pieces, not just as good football players coming in, but guys who just to bring the right atmosphere in the dressing room. And that's why we talk about Chris Sutton when he came in. This is a guy with a chip on his shoulder, but a point to prove. We spoke about it in great length during that episode. This is a guy, he's won the Premier League, Premier League Golden Boot winner. At one point, he was the most expensive player in British football when he transferred to Blackburn Rovers. And obviously, people are writing him off, saying, he's done now, but he comes in with a point to prove. He's got. I'm going to show these people. Alan Thompson was another one in England, and Bolton, he was much celebrated. That left foot goes to Aston Villa for $4.5 million, and after a year, he's pretty much frozen out. I believe Villa brought in Benito Carboni, who was one of the players that sort of forced it. And then the summer that we signed Thompson, Aston Villa brought in David Ginola. John Gregory brought him in, and it was like Thompson was just completely frozen out. When 2 years before they paid nearly £5 million for him, it's like 4.75 million. So he brought him in. But another guy that is massively, massively important. And it took a couple of months to get that deal done, to say it's way before transfer windows. And again, I just want to talk about the significance again, because the younger viewers won't understand this, how important Neil Lennon was in the machine, the cog in the machine that Neil Lennon was. He was a stalwart for him at Leicester, won 2 League Cups under him there. And yeah, we pursued him.
He arrived in what, November?
November, December time, it was roughly.
December it might have been. And even Thompson, I don't think was there till late September.
I was in,
because he's missed the European cut off and all that shit by a long way.
I say it's long before the days of the transfer window, so there's players getting transferred right up until I guess like March or something. Which
we manipulate very well this season.
We do with the Didier Agat one, because Didier Agat signed a short-term deal. Ramon Vega on loan as well. Yep, we brought him in about the same time at Christmas time, and he played most of the second half of the season. He was superb. But I just want to focus as quickly on Neil Lennon and how important he was, because again, a lot of the younger fans will just be, will be more exposed to what's happened to Neil Lennon recently, and maybe not remember him as a player. But some managers, when they move to other clubs, there's like we've talked about Ange with his targets when he came in. He's had guys that I need to get them in. Neil Lennon was definitely a Neil's guy, wasn't he, Russell? It was like, I need to get him at all costs, and 5.75 million. It's a big outlay for Celtic at that point.
Well, he was actually like that summer. It was closer to 8 million, and that's not one of your transfer market fees. No, genuinely, that was the rumor was it was going to be between 7 and 8 million, and we couldn't get it over the line. I think it was Peter Taylor took over at Leicester, and I think
he did. It was Peter Taylor.
I wonder if there was a bit of like a gentleman's agreement that maybe Martin was breaking a wee bit, like I'll not go back and take your players sort of thing this summer. And then O'Neill's went, well, apart from Neil Lennon, which is absolute kudos to how good or how strong a part. Neil Lennon joined Celtic. He just turned 29. So to shelling out that money, you're not going to make a return on it unless you're doing a flip, like you're doing a season with him, and then at 30 he's going to go back to a top 6 club. Yep. I don't see that being. I think Martin O'Neill's went, no. He's a 5-year investment. Of course, unknown to Martin O'Neill, he would actually do 2 seasons under Strachan and 2 last 16s in the Champions League as captain without Martin O'Neill there, which, again, people want to forget about the quality of Neil Lennon as a footballer. But he was such an important cog in the machine. Such an important... And I was that season, 13-14, and by Lennon's second, third season, that was the name and number I had in my back, It was Lennon 18. I promise you that. I think... that was O'Neill realising that some of the investments we make here, which you'll never get now, and I understand the reasons why not, but Celtic were in such a position where, O'Neill could go, I know he's 29, but this is going to be vital for the project, as we all love that word these days, for the next 5 years. Just age won't really matter with the role he plays. Yes, there'll be no resale value. Yes, his wages are EPL wages, 30 grand a week. But what he'll bring to the team will be the cornerstone of it. And Celtic took that gamble, right? But the one thing I will say is Lennon then gave that bonus couple of seasons under Strachan. And I think those bonus couple of seasons, you really look at that 6 million quid for the December, as you said, 2000 to leaving Celtic, what was it, the summer 2007? It was.
Yes, yep.
Right, and you look at the trophies he won in that time, you go, fucking hell, that wasn't a bad investment whatsoever. That was a good investment. Just very quickly as well, Michael McDonald, Boise, your show classes with Endless Celts, get in touch with them to avoid this. Look, we've been at 9 o'clock on a Friday for a hell of a long time, Michael. If there's any clash, that's any other show's gift. It's absolutely fine. And then the Celts boys are top notch. If their show runs into the 9 o'clock sort of bit, there's nothing we can do about that. We always start at 9. That's what we do.
Yeah, long before Bustalgia took the Friday night slot on the Boise Bus, it was the Double Doon quiz where Russell assembled most of us with the team. That's how he assembled us. That was it. That was a sneaky way of getting us all on board. Going, I say most of us because I found out that Connor Carr never actually did a Double Doon quiz. We should do an honorary one for him one time when he's on. We should do a Double Doon quiz just especially for him. He's not getting out of that easy. So he's the only one that avoided it. But Liam, I was going to ask you about, obviously Neil Lennon came in, the perfect foil for Paul Lambert in that midfield, because obviously before that you had Craig Bulgley and Lambert were a good tandem in the midfield, but Neil Lennon, perfect foil for him.
He came in, he played perfect with Lambert. I loved it. Give Lambert a wee bit more freedom as well, to be a bit more creative as well. He didn't have to do all that heavy work in the middle. I thought when Neil came, he was it was one of the ones that the fans called as well. Everybody in the message boards, everybody in the forums, that was the one that we were all crying out for. He was on everybody's radar. We all knew about Neil Lennon, and he'd also been in that big bust up with Alan Shearer as well before he came. Right, and there was a whole thing that they were supposed to suspend Shearer, but they didn't want to do it because he was
England captain
at the time. But he stood in Lennon's head. Like a real horrible.
Stood. He stamped on him. It's a stamp. 100% did. And in Lennon's book, he says the one reason he lost respect for Shearer is because he should have apologised after that, and he didn't.
I was
never apologized. And that's, I think, seeing the heat in the moment. Okay, he's too thingly, but see after it, and you see the replays, you fucking get in touch with the player, don't you? And you say, for Shearer not to have done that Lennon says to me, he goes, that's that he goes, see him, I've got no respect for him. Just that, and that does lack class. Completely does.
Fight in the street, you lose all respect, But anyway, when Lennon came to us, it was one of the things that was like, all right, how we talk about like the engine room and all that. It was like we talk about, CCV. This was your cog in the middle. Everything came through Neil Lennon. He made it. He dictated the pace of the team at that point as well, and that was good. And we were all looking really forward to it because everybody knew that was the fix at the time.
Do you remember as well? A lot of folk, Liam, couldn't picture how Lennon, like everyone thought, Lennon's going to take Lambert's place. Like, we've got a holding midfielder. How's this going to work? And it turns out, just play them together. It'll be fine. Good players can play with good players, Liam. It doesn't matter if they're both technically holding midfielders or if they're both attacking players. Good players can play with good players, I think.
I think a good team is when you have all your best football players on the park at the same time. When you don't, it causes disharmony. That's when you get, squad management issues. You get, players spitting a dummy and all that. But when all your best players are the people that are starting, that's when you got a good team. And I think with Celtic right now, I don't know if all our best players are starting. So,
Tomorrow, Liam, tomorrow.
That's the ground tomorrow.
But we'll quickly just kind of a wee bit of focus, as we always do when we go and do these season review ones. We have to always keep an eye on the competition, and it was a busy time over the other side of the city because they've just came off the back of winning a double in the season before that. They won a treble, so Dick Advocat scooped up 5 trophies in 2 seasons. Yikes, and they're throwing all sorts of money at it. So this is the summer that they go Dutch crazy, sign a massive Dutch contingent. Fernando Rickson, Bert Kontum and Ronald de Boer. They all joined that season. Kenny Miller, Alan Johnston and Paul Ritchie, who they flipped really quickly and sold to Man City after bringing them in for nothing. For Hearts, they basically flipped them a couple of weeks later for a quick profit. And also a guy who would become a massive thorn in our side in the next few years, Peter Lovenkrantz, joined them that summer. I said, next week we'll need to talk about that cup final, sadly, because it's the O2 season. But yeah, this is also the season where they signed Tori Andre Flo as well in November, I believe it was. They signed him.
Yeah. And that was when the term was coined.
Yep. For every fiver, we'll spend a tenner.
And that, I think we said it on the Sutton show. I don't know if everyone who's watching's probably seen that already, but if you've not, I mean, you need to know that that signing of Torianji Flo, I don't think Chelsea valued him, Phil, at 12 million quid. No. Rangers have offered 12 million quid as like a first offer to deliberately get the 2-to-1 price on it, you know, on the Sutton fee. Same club, two strikers, we've spent double than the other. I mean, that's tragic coattail bullshit, grabbing coattail. It's actually embarrassing. And then because he's got that liner at the presser, he's got that one liner obviously stored away. He just couldn't wait to say it. That's an ego out of control. That's not a calculated ego. That's an ego completely out of control, out of touch, and soon to become a busted flush.
Yeah, well, you just look a couple of seasons back when we did the Moravchik episode, we talked about when the summer Venglos came in, we were just off the back of winning the league, first title in 10 years, stopped them doing the 10. David Murray does a very infamous interview after they'd spent like 30 million that summer on like Kanchelskis, Amato, who else did they bring in? Perini, all these type of players, right? That they signed that summer. And he said, we want to get our title back. That's what he used. There was a term he used, our title. He says, our ego's bruised. We want to get our title back. So that was always David Murray's mindset. It was by any means necessary. And this is another one. Celtic have went and spent 6 million on Chris Sutton. It's like kind of that, because that became the Scottish football record at that time, because Kanchelskis was the record before it. Aye, and if you remember correctly, in the run-up to Torianji Flo signing, Rangers made two very high-profile approaches of £12 million for Diego Tristan and Raul Temudo. Both of them get knocked back. So Rangers were essentially going round clubs in Europe saying, we have £12 million, sell us a striker. And on the third one of asking, they got Torianji Flo. So I can remember the whole Tristan and Temudo links. And it was the third one that came along. So when they're sitting there going, oh, we got our man, it's like, he's not really. He's actually the third choice, isn't he? Let's think about it.
Well, the thing, you say it was Rangers' third choice. I think it was Chelsea's third choice striker as well.
It was. I mean, Jean-Francois definitely was.
I don't think he was ever a £12 million player. I don't think Rangers valued him at 12 million. No. I do believe David Murray wanted to value a striker, as you say, at 12 million.
Aye.
And naturally, 12 million is going to get you a good goal scorer, right? And I think Flo's record at Rangers probably relates and depicts a pretty good sort of centre forward. I think he's probably about 30 odd goals in 50 odd games.
He's actually got an amazing goal ratio when you actually look at the black and white. If you're one of these people that goes with XG and stuff like that, his XG is actually really, really good. It's astounding. But he's always seen as this flop because it's a massive, massive price tag. And ultimately, it never really won them anything, So,
well, I mean, you were never going to win with that sort of investment, Phil.
No,
that sort of investment was always going to be held against them. But at that point, the funniest thing is, in my opinion, is like David Murray couldn't see that at the time. Like, sign could backfire one day. This might be one step too far, but the ego was so huge, and the love-in and the succulent lamb was so big, that even stupid signings like this, he thought would still, never get scrutinised. And unfortunately, there was a guy across the city, and it wasn't Chris Sutton, who Murray seemed to be keeping a healthy eye on. It wasn't him that he should have been keeping an eye on. It was a guy who cost £650,000. That was the big problem.
Yes, it was indeed. And another wee side story, Liam, I was probably refresh your head on this one, because obviously Rangers are also going to be the threat every season, but this is at the time, and you'll remember this well, when Dundee appointed Ivano Benetti as manager and had such players as Juan Sara, Fabian Caballero, Zurab Kijnanishvili, Georgi Nemzadze, and Walter Del Rio were just a few of the players that season. Krija comes in the next season, but Liam, mate, what a mental time. Dundee FC rocking up with the players. And am I right in saying there was a story that Maradona was going to play for them at one point and it never came to fruition?
That's right.
Did they not think Krija this season?
No, Krija comes in for the next season. 2001-2002 season. And then,
no, he doesn't.
On Wikipedia for the 2000-2001 squad there.
Sure.
No, he's,
I think he signs for Rangers during this season. I am positive that Knija 0102 starts at 01.
Right.
VAR.
Maybe it is, but in terms of like just Dundee, though, it was a mental time that a team like that is rocking up with 8 players.
I'm just trying to
football
it might very well be.
It was surreal. It was surreal Scottish football. That the amount of internationalists that came for like top 5 European teams playing in Scotland did not make sense. Brilliant. I think it upped our game quite a bit, and again, we had a team full internationals as well. So it was good. It was good to have that competition because I think it kept our guys sharper. I think we should have done better in Europe with that sort of competition.
Here comes the other argument then, Liam. You look at the quality, and I'm glad you brought up Dundee, Phil. I think it's one strong argument, but at this point, Motherwell are paying guys $7,000 a week, which they couldn't do now. The XPL, as it was known then, was light years ahead. All the teams compared with, I'm not saying light years because they were all amazing, but the standard of all the other teams was way above what the equivalent standard is now. So the competition was far harder to win the amount of games we did that season, to amass the amount of points we did that season would be far harder than it would be in today's climate. People don't want to know that, Phil. But that is the absolute cold hard facts.
Yeah.
They were better teams we were up against then.
It was. It's a really interesting sub. So it's one of these ones, again, for the younger viewers that don't know. You need to look up the escapades of Dundee over the next few years when they appoint Benetti. Some of the players that rock up over between, I think it's from there to like 2003, 2004. Guys like Fabrizio Ravanelli and stuff like that turn up and play for them. Then they go to administration like a few weeks later and he gets released. But it's just like, what is going on? But a madness from Dundee. But yeah, it's fun to say Juan Sara, Fabian Caballero and stuff like that this season. Just phenomenal strike force. And yeah, just quickly pre-season stuff. We played Bray Wanderers, beat them 3-2 in Ireland. We drew 2-2 with FC Copenhagen. We lost 2-0 to Leipzig, but it wasn't Red Bull Leipzig. It was the other team in the city called Sachsen Leipzig. So they must be like a third division team at this point because they're not obviously in the Bundesliga. We lost 4-2 at home to Bordeaux, who we will cross paths with this season in the UEFA Cup as well. And we ended our pre-season with a 2-1 win over West Ham at Celtic Park. And that brings us to the halfway point of the show, guys. Nice and just right we've passed the hour mark. So yeah, once we come back, we'll be diving into the 2000 and 2001 season. And yeah, we'll be talking about Henrik Larsson, obviously winning the treble, just some of the amazing moments all the way. It's going to be a good one. So yeah, I'll put in the quick musical interlude and then we're back. Yeah, we'll be right into it, folks. So back in 2.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.
And we're back, and there's Russell sitting down right on time, sir. Fantastic. It's also you've rehearsed that one there just to make your entrance right at the end of it. But yeah, we're good to go, guys. So obviously I spoke there just before the break there about a culture change at Celtic. In terms of it's all well and good having the players that have got the ability, but there's got to have something else as well, and it's that camaraderie in the dressing room, similar to what Martin O'Neill would have experienced when his playing days at the Nottingham Forest under Clough. And Russell, obviously we know about the quite famous stories of this Celtic team, and they're that generation that we spoke about before where, it's not about being mollycoddled and being really fine-tuned athletes and stuff like that, like you see in the modern day game. This is like the very old school, this team. We've heard Darren Adee on Open Goal talking about the way the youth players used to get absolutely wound up by Thompson and Sutton, and obviously when Hartson and stuff all join as well. But again, that's a really important element, wanted to bring into that team, just that real friendship that they would have all had. It was a vital thing for them to add to the side.
I think there was a huge aspect of mentality. It was all about Martin O'Neill. We can fawn over Angie, and I like Angie's sort of his psyche when it comes to signing players. He signs the person as well as the player. I don't think that's something new. I think you look at what Martin was doing there, and he was very much signing guys that he knew they'll go to fucking war. They're men, and I know that I don't mean that in a sexist manner. We're talking about the men's game here, right? So we're gonna. I think he wanted folk he could trust in the firing line. Could they handle the heat? You need to be able to handle the heat. Guys that he could, as you say, not have to mollycoddle through the 90 minutes. Go ahead, there's the fucking starting lineup. You know where you're playing. Do your job. You've worked on shape all week with other coaches. That's it. And when I come in, listen to me, show me the respect, get the mentality from me, and let us go. So I think that was very much, you couldn't sign just I don't know, for example, trying to think like players these days anyway, Phil.
I get you.
Anyone, you couldn't have 11 of those, right? Modern day players in an O'Neill team. He had to mix it with guys who go, yes, ability is very, very important, but on top of that they have to have the streak. They have to have that streak. And Martin must have done a bit of digging on these guys, as well, Liam. He must have known before, because it's not necessarily like he'd worked with all these guys before, but I do believe that once he got them in, he probably changed them anyway. But I do definitely think that a big aspect of his signing philosophy was folk he knew would maybe react to what he was saying, maybe not always like it, but eventually convert. And I think that's the big difference. But you've got to remember as well, anyone that could play wing back for Celtic at that point was as good an athlete as anyone in that Ange Postecoglou side. Anyone. Because that was the graveyard shift of all shifts in that 3-5-2. Fucking hell. Alan Thompson must have thought, he told me I was going up to Scotland for an easy ride. Left wing back.
Did you not bring up Steve Guppy right away as well?
Guppy comes in the next season.
Come in the next season.
So this is interesting, Liam, because in many of the games of the 2000-2001 season, believe it or not, it seems like Alan Thompson's took Bobby Petter's spot. Yeah, look how many starting lineups both of them start.
That's true.
Thompson used to play one in.
Aye.
Yes, he did.
I always associate Thompson as being that wing back who we all probably thought of there when we're talking about wing backs, him and a gap. However, that first season, Thompson was playing one in very often, which is, you don't remember that very well. But Petter and Thompson definitely played together. That's, again, I think that's brilliant management too. And what he did with Bobby Petter, Bobby Petter's maybe more like the modern player. And do you know what? His managerial skills were so good. Even he's going, you're right, Martin. I'm the man. I'm an animal. he loses his shit as well. I think it's amazing to think what you can do to someone's personality that can make them then convey that in the pitch. Whereas modern day football is all about what you can coach them with the ball, and surely they're all good enough anyway with the fucking ball. It's about the streak. Can you get the streak? But now I just don't think any of them could handle the tough love the way the likes of O'Neill would dish it out. But the the funniest thing about that is the fear of one of his hairdryer treatments, for want of a better term. Think how the 10-foot tall feeling he would have given you when you did it well. I think that I bet you that beats anyone going, well, you did everything you were coached to do well, mate. Well done. Don't get too high and don't get too down and don't go out for a drink, and well, if you are, go only for 1 or 2. Fuck all that. I think when you did well for Martin O'Neill, he puts you up there. And I think then you come back to earth before the next game. He makes you feel stupid again, but he then makes you become a hero again, and then you go out and it all. I just think that's missing these days, and it's a shame that gets called being a dinosaur.
Oh.
We speak about people's mental health and mentality more than ever in this day and age. And Martin O'Neill was, I think, someone who triggered the best bits of people's mentality. That doesn't make you a dinosaur.
So you talk about these managers as always, they're like motivational gurus. There's a lot of them that can come in that really know how to, especially guys that never played the game as well, that can still come in and manage to get performances.
Jose Mourinho,
classic example. Think about O'Neill though. Imagine coming in. There's no player that could turn around and give him any cheek. As we saw with him as an interview as a pundit, he'd won trophies. He'd won big trophies. Was it Paul Lambert had 1 European Cup? Martin had 2.
He did.
Right? So you can't really argue him. I was reading something this week, and they were talking about when he first came on the training pitch, and Stefan Mahe had a really bad habit of, if the tackles were flying in and training and didn't like the way the tackles, he'd come off the pitch. He'd walk off. And suppose he was walking off in one of the first training sessions, O'Neill shouted, "Keep walking, and you're docked 2 weeks' wages," and he just turned and came back. But that shows you want a team. The players are guys like, I can imagine guys like Petrov and Sutton and all them seeing that. And they go, that's it. That's how it's done. Because I think that was anarchy under Barnes. It was. You would have that sort of behaviour, and I think that just showed them, we've got the right guy in the right place, and a wee bit of discipline can be a really, really good thing.
Well, Liam, you brought up a name there that I was going to come to you on, because you've spent part of your life living in Bulgaria. So obviously you brought his name up there. There's a man who was a bit of a lost ship the season before under John Barnes. Now, I think I've said this before, but every manager, despite how bad they may be, always seem to sign like one player that at least is somewhat good, even if they've had a disastrous season. And Petrov was probably John Barnes one. Whether he actually identified them is another story, but John Barnes was the manager when we signed Petrov. But that season that he came in, I think he's played right back sometimes for us. And Barnes' 4-2-2 formation that was pretty much just very narrow, and he was all over the place. But again, talk about Martin O'Neill's man management skills and getting a tune out of a player. We've seen it with Brendan, Ange, all sorts of managers since then. But this one is a classic example of him just turning Petrov into something we didn't even know was possible. I mean, we'd heard the stories for inside Petrov, how highly rated he was, but on the evidence of what we saw under Barnes, it was like, what is this? What are we getting here? But he was unbelievable under Martin O'Neill. The example, the best like box to box midfielder that probably in my lifetime that I've seen at Celtic. He's
just quickly, my memory tells me, Liam, and you might remember this player as well, because he was a bit of a Bulgarian legend. We were meant to sign 2, both Petrov and Petkov.
Yeah,
Milan Petkov.
Yeah,
Milan Petkov, not Martin. No, Martin Petrov was a few years there. There was Milan Petkov, who was like a left-sided midfielder. I think he went to Athens. I'm sure he went to Athens at the time. But we were linked with. It was bizarre. We were linked with both. This was under John Barnes, right enough, which isn't really relevant to the show. But we were linked with both Petrov and Petkov at the same time, which is funny because I think you see that now. once you've delved into a market, i.e. the Japanese league, you go, well, I was scouting him. However, check out that boy. Or, whatever market it may be. You might actually come out with two for the price of one. I'm sure that Petrov wasn't the only one. It was a Milan Petkov Celtic tried to sign at that time as well.
I'm surprised that's not a market we've went back into. I watch Bulgarian football while I'm over there. And it's robust. It's very similar to the fucking chaos that is Scottish football.
Yep.
Referees, crazy fans, like everything, can you lose a game? One team that's sort of getting paid by the state to run away with it, sort of thing, and ludicrous refereeing decisions and that. But there was a lot of good players, especially at that time as well, for the Bulgarian team. I was surprised we never went back. I wish they would have signed another Bulgarian with Petrov at the time as well, because his whole story there was that first year he was completely lost. He could barely speak English, and he was working in a burger van. Everybody knows he works in a burger van at night, to learn English, and a guy he knew from Bulgaria. But
I think that's world class. He did that though, Phil. Sorry, Liam. I think that's. Do you not think that attitude as well? That tells you, if that's a market you could tap into. If that's going to be the attitude that when you come over here and you struggle to settle with them, you're willing to work in a burger van to pick up the language. That's the sort of culture and the sort of attitude that works, doesn't it?
Aye. I think, but I think we O'Neill, I think he turned him into a man. He's really, he saw that, he saw a boy, and he turned him into a man. And when you see Petrov sitting with guys like Sutton and Larsson and Lambert, all those guys are significantly older than him. And Petrov holds his own. It's not like he's the wee brother and that. And it looked like he was, despite his age, he became a senior player in that team very, very quickly.
Very quickly. I agree. And he was one of the younger ones. I mean, even the road to Seville, he did all that at 23.
Aye.
23 years old. You know what I mean? And he was like just that guaranteed first team pick. That whole run to Seville, I know we'll get to all that, but you think then that's 2 seasons later. So this year when O'Neill's picked him up, obviously from the wreckage of the Barnes, Dalglish, whatever you want to call it era, he's only 21-year-old laddie who's, as you say, worked in burger vans and that, and maybe looked a wee bit. I think they said, I think Petrov admits he was overweight as well as a player. And, playing out of position, you could imagine as well O'Neill coming in with the demeanour he's got, Phil, the manner he's got. That'd be quite an intimidating presence to come in when you already feel under the cosh. You already feel like you're playing catch-up. If you're Petrov, you feel, fucking, I don't fit in as it is. Now you've got this guy lowering his glasses at everyone. I'm never going to get a chance. You know what I mean?
Says a lot.
Became one of the most vital cogs in the machine.
Well, it says a lot when O'Neill goes to Villa and who ends up going to Villa.
Of course. And then O'Neill leaves and he becomes Villa captain.
That's right.
So it's like this. Yeah, you're right though. I mean, I think stuff like this. This is the wee bits that I think it's so easy to say. O'Neill's spending was out of control. Well, who turned Stilian Petrov into an £8 million player? But yet got 5 years, managed to convince him to spend his best years of his 20s at Celtic. Because if Martin O'Neill isn't there, Petrov does the treble season, maybe 01-02, he fucks off then with any other manager. He doesn't do 4 or 5 years, even to the year under Strachan, because O'Neill's made him buy into Celtic that much. And you folk don't get that bit about like this wasn't just a signing spree Martin O'Neill did. He certainly didn't bring in 12 players like last summer. And yet the points deficit was pretty similar. And trust me, the opposition, not just from Rangers, but across the league, was far harder.
It was indeed, as even earlier on, just talking about Dundee, their madness. So the league was a crazy time in the Motherwell, just spending crazy money at the time. I think even Aberdeen, despite having a rank-rotten season the year before, still were bringing in like players for. I think they might sign Craig Hignett around about this time, who was like Middlesbrough, like one of Middlesbrough's main men. Did they not bring him in around about this era as well? So it was a much harder time. And by the way, speaking of Aberdeen, a bit of Bulgarian trivia for you here, Liam. Monty's asked, who was the wee ginger Bulgarian Aberdeen had?
I know.
Ivanov. No. The crazy eyes.
Ilian.
Todorov.
Yes, he went to Dundee United.
That's right.
It was Kiriakov. He played. He was like one of the Bulgarian stars at the '94 World Cup.
We talked about that in the
as well. He signed 3 or 4 for that team.
I know the one you're talking about.
There was one time.
Aye.
I can remember when we did the '94, the first ever Bustalgia we did. We talked about those Aberdeen players that were in the Bulgarian team that got to the semi-finals of the '94 World Cup. They were rocking up at Aberdeen in the late '90s. Like, what's going on here? Mental times during this whole year. So definitely a much higher standard of opponents across the league that season, or this era, basically.
It's funny, Phil, because most of the guys for that team were playing in German and Turkish teams. Same when Petrov was the captain as well. There was a lot of guys. Most of that team played in the Bundesliga and that. They were playing all over in Italy. There was a lot, and a lot played in Turkey as well.
Aye.
Petrov there, captain of Celtic, and also the captain of Bulgaria.
He was the captain at Euro 04 when Larsson scored the diving header for Sweden against them, wasn't he? He was. I remember that one. But yeah, in terms of like the team that's coming together, I say he's walked in, he's inherited players like Paul Lambert, Alan Stubbs, Jackie McNamara, Lubo, Johan Mjalby, and obviously Henrik Larsson, who will have his own segment. We'll be talking about him in great depth in a wee while. But yeah, and he's brought in obviously guys like Sutton, he adds Thompson, Agat, Valharin, Neil Lennon. So it's all starting to come together. The team is this is the team that he's building to compete with Rangers. And of course, what you need early on to really show Rangers that you mean business is you've got to make a statement somehow. And oh boy, did Celtic make a big statement early in this season, because on the 27th of August 2000, it goes without saying, guys, if you ask any Celtic fan, what's one of the first games you think of when you think of the Martin O'Neill era? And this one is probably going to be right up there. Probably with maybe a couple of the UEFA Cup games from 2003. This one is legendary. It's the original Demolition Derby. It is the 6-2 win on August 27th, 2000. Now, at this point, we're 5 games into the season. Celtic have won all their games up to now. So we've had a good, strong start. I can't remember, did Rangers have a perfect start as well going into this game? I'm pretty sure they did as well. But the thing is this, so Celtic at this point in time have not beaten Rangers in any competition since November 98. But the funny thing was, the last time we did beat them, we beat them 5-1 in the Joseph Venglos season.
Well, so, that was it. I know, because it was less than 2 years since we've pumped them by the same margin. Yeah. I mean, you're right. It's like this does seem like the original Demolition derby. Do you know what I mean?
Isn't it? So strange. I think because this season's associated with victory. The 5-1 from 2 years before, we didn't come away with anything that season, so it's kind of not associated with it. Kind of felt like it didn't achieve anything in the end. Maybe that's because of it. But yeah, at that point in time, November 98 was the last time we beat them. Since then, we've had a 2-2 draw at Ibrox. We had the infamous shame game, was a 3-0 at Celtic Park, which won them the league. And then the season before there, with Barnes, there was the one when Lambert got his teeth knocked out by Alberts when the penalty got given. We lost that 4-2. Yeah. We got beat 4. We had a 1-1 at Christmas time with them where we hit the bar 3 times. Couldn't beat them. There was a game where we pounded them in like February 2000. We were all over them, and then Rod Wallace scored like an 87th minute winner to beat us 1-0. Alberts even missed a penalty in that game, which never happened. So you began to think, this is our night tonight. We're going to actually beat them. And that Jörg Alberts missed a penalty. They still found a last minute winner. And then just a week after we won the League Cup the season before, when Kenny Dalglish did that infamous press conference in Baird's Bar, we went out at Ibrox that weekend. We got beat 4-0 that season. So it's not been a good run, but yeah, this was, victories over Rangers in the 90s were, they still happen from time to time, but this one blew many people away. I imagine in the stadium it was surreal at times because watching it on TV, you couldn't believe it. Celtic were 3-0 up inside 11 minutes. Obviously, Chris Sutton scores the first goal just a minute into the game. Yeah, okay, he was offside, but hey, that's just the way it goes. He's obviously pretty much on. He's on the pretty much on the byline, just like slots it away. The second goal, Moravcik takes a corner, and Stan Petrov, who we were just talking about, throws himself at it. He's like, "Get the fuck out of my way! Nobody stopped me from getting on the end of this." Bullet header into the net, and then the third goal, Moravcik. It was Moravcik that cut it back, I believe, for Paul Lambert to just run on and just put his laces.
But that's the iconic moment. They're queuing up here. Remember when Crocker says they're queuing?
Yeah,
and that. Obviously, he's not doing it deliberately, but that kind of just encapsulated. This is now insane. Like, what the fuck are we watching right now? Like, he's queuing up. They're queuing up here, and you're going, as you say, inside 11 minutes, we're now queuing up for a third goal.
Mm-hmm.
That is. I think they're queuing up here as one of the, one of the most underrated of Ian Crocker's lines. Like, maybe obviously it's not. We're never going to beat that. It's sensational. But they're queuing up here. When you think about it, you go, that is ludicrous. How much? You've never seen a team on the rope so much in your life. That's what they were. It's a total knockout. It's game over. It's the towel's thrown in. Call it off. When Lambert puts that ball in the net. And yet again, may I add, just another one, Phil. As I always say, Paul Lambert only scores screamers.
He does. Doesn't score tap-ins, that guy.
Tap-ins, mate.
See when you're saying there, Russell, about throw the towel in, Liam, I'm going to say to you, mate, Fernando Rickson's expression just summed that up, didn't he? Because there's the famous moment when he's been getting ripped by Bobby Petr for most of that first half, and there's a point where he's like picking himself up off the ground and the camera zooms in on him, and he looks like he has had the fright of his life. Big wide eyes. He can't believe what's going on. Bobby Petr is absolutely rinsing him. So much so, the Dick Advocaat substitutes him midway through the first half to bring on two guy to basically change the shape because Rangers are getting annihilated. But the best Glasgow Derby debut for Fernando, was it? Absolutely destroyed.
But it's like we felt we had a new player in Bobby Petr at that time as well.
Because Barnes signed him. Barnes signed him the season before.
But he was rapid in that game.
Yeah.
He had a couple more games and then he sort of fell away from it. He dropped away.
Disagree, Liam. I think Bobby Petr played a bigger part that season in your memory. Will serve you, honestly. Like, as I said, did my homework today. He's heavily involved, mate. He's heavily involved, honestly. He
must have knew Rickson for the Dutch camps and stuff like that as well too. So because the way he went about him looks like that's like something you've trained with before, and you just have that confidence that you know that you're going to beat him, you're going to roast him every time. And by the look in Rickson's face, he knew it as well. It looked like is it Laurel and Hardy, Stan Laurel, when he did that face after making him up, like scratching his head, didn't know what to do.
I mean, when you think about it, I know next week will be season 2, but you think of Bobby Petr versus Ajax in Martin O'Neill's second season, Liam, he couldn't have fell away that much. When you think about it, because this is what, like, I think Petr was one of those players. He does a wee interview in the season. It's on YouTube, the season review stuff. He says, Martin O'Neill just made me believe again.
Yeah.
To just take everyone on. Take them on. And I think basically what he's saying is, in a weird way, Martin O'Neill's went, you're fucking amazing. You're better than any of them. Beat them. When you get the ball, take the piss out them. And you're right. There may have been prior knowledge of Rickson. He might have been easy prey, shall we say, for Bobby Petr.
Yeah.
But I think it's testament to Petr that you bring in Alan Thompson. That summer in 2001, you bring in Steve Guppy.
Yep.
And yet the start of that season when we play Ajax, Bobby Petr, I remember him and a Gat that night were just unplayable. That Ajax team didn't know how to deal with them. Bobby Petr, his turnaround under O'Neill is yet another example as to why Martin O'Neill didn't buy, his success. He turned guys like Bobby Petr into players we didn't even know was capable.
I think as well, when it comes to like the memories of Bobby Petter, it's the same with any footballer. Goals always live longer in the memory. And the Ajax goal, obviously, like you'll find, Liam, that see this season, he's probably involved, as Russell says, in a lot of assists and stuff, but goals will always stand out more than actual assists and stuff like that. So it probably is quite easy to forget that he was quite well involved. Now he does pop up at the start of the next season and is a very key member in getting us into the Champions League in the 01-02 season. But yeah, this game, he is on fire. Say Fernando Rickson, he gets pulled off. He gets the Andy Halliday role, basically getting pulled off midway through the first half. Two guy comes out to change of shape. Now here's a question I put to you two guys, and again, this is probably again from years and years of Rangers like beating us. But see when they made it 3-1 before half time, Claudio Reyna gets one back that just crosses the line and they award the goal. Did you just get a bit nervous? Because I was like, oh no, don't tell me they're going to come back. Because I just had that feel like, oh Jesus, oh no, they're going to, because we scored 3 goals in 11 minutes, and then the next goal we didn't score again until the second half. But we've went like a quiet period, no scoring, and they've got one back for half time, and I was like, oh no, don't tell me. I can remember my memories, my emotions when Claudio Reyna's goal was allowed. I was like, oh shit, oh no, don't tell me we're going to collapse here. I can genuinely remember that, and I felt the same even when they made it 4-2 in the second half. But were you the same, Russell?
I think it's an understandable feeling, that, because I think you were in a situation that was completely unrelatable to what we're used to, if that makes sense. And it's like expect the unexpected. 3-0 inside 11 minutes. Now it's 3-1. I mean, you're all over the place mentally, aren't you?
Yep.
There always one dodgy penalty decision or red card.
Yeah, of course.
So 3-1, I like to see us never take the foot off the pedal, crush them, dominate them, kill their spirit, send them home, back to their caves.
Yeah, you're right. I love that. And do you know what? See, in the end, Liam, that's what they did.
Aye. They did, because they go in at half time 3-1 up, but they come in the second half and it's only minutes in when that goal happens, guys. That one, the Henrik Larsson chip, long ball at the park, Chris Sutton meets it perfectly, chases it down into the path of Larsson, takes a touch, skins Bert Kortman by putting it through his legs, and then Stefan Klos comes out just that wee bit too far. You've given him the opening he needs. He doesn't need to break his stride or anything, and just gracefully lifts it right over Stefan Klos's head into the net. And as Ian Crocker said, that is sensational. It goes without saying, it truly was sensational. Is it Henrik Larsson's best goal against Rangers, though?
I don't know.
I like the one from a 3-3 draw a couple of years later. He's back to goal.
The tap down with the studs, and then so it
spins and hits it. I fucking love that goal. I love it.
But it's not associated with the win.
Exactly, aye. Yep.
But I actually think, I'm going to push back. Okay. I think the best is his 50th of the season.
Oh, yes.
That angle is a joke. That angle, and that's his weak foot. Not that he had a weak foot, but technically his right foot is Henrik, right? If he takes a penalty, he takes it with his right foot. And that angle's not on. And I think that's maybe a bit ago. But I think, do you know what's so important about the chip? The chip was Henrik going, firstly, I'm back.
Yep.
Right? And I think that was very important because I think, not that Larsson would ever admit this or whatever, because he's not that much of an arsehole, but I think he knows they got off with one. And I think Barnes, etc., because we were on a good run up to my injury.
I
had Viduka well channeled.
Yep.
You know, Viduka wouldn't have got away with what he was doing with Larsson in the dressing room because Larsson was such a better player. Larsson would look at him and go, well, fuck off then. And none of the players take notice. But I don't think Viduka acts the way he does. I think once Viduka becomes main man, if you like, that's so the ego comes over. But Barnes' run, we've spoke about it, Phil, was 10 wins from 10 at the beginning.
Aye, smashing teams.
You know, we're doing okay. Henrik's injury is so big in that. And I just think the term unfinished business comes in. And I think to do it with that chip, it is such a fucking arrogant finish. It is a message, though, as well. And don't get me wrong, I will also say, since it's Martin O'Neill month, I think 10% of that goal has Martin O'Neill in it.
Yeah,
I believe because Martin O'Neill, whatever he's saying to the rest, he's saying to Henrik, you know you're the best player in the world right now. You're the striker. I knew about you when I was at Leicester. All the managers do. You can hear him saying this. All of them know about you. Everyone knows you're the best player. The reason I came to Celtic was to work with you. I can hear all this stuff.
Yep.
And I think that finish, fucking just know what you're now up against. There's so much to that goal. That's why it's so significant. But I do think, I think technically the one on his left peg at Ibrox as well. I think that's a toughie, especially for your 50th, because he's so conscious he's 50th. I'm sure we'll get to it, but
aye. The one that Sean Maloney almost stole off him, the cheek of it. Sean Maloney running in there at the back post, but obviously, as I said just a minute ago about when they're getting back to 3-1, we're 4-1 up now at this point, but they get it back to 4-2. They get a penalty because, of course, Rangers got a penalty. Billy Dodds converts it. Billy Dodds playing for them at that point. All the players that they had, all the international talent, Billy Dodds was in the team that day. Mental. But of course, we quickly restore our 3-goal lead, Liam, and it's a Henrik Larsson header. Bobby Petter's free kick whipped in from the right-hand side. Funny, and just nice wee glancing header, just perfectly placed into the far corner. And then something else that gets forgotten from that game, Barry Ferguson got himself sent off and then got himself in a wee bit of trouble that night. I remember the headlines. He apparently went into a boozers with his Rangers trackie on and ruffled a few feathers and he got himself in a bit of bother with some of the locals, essentially. That was one of those stories from that day. But I remember him getting sent off. He was only a youngster at that point.
He was a prick at that point. Us, you know? Yeah. It's weird with Ferguson. I don't have the same hatred to him now as what I did before.
I've done it.
He wanted to talk about the same. But at that point, he was... See, on a very, very smaller scale, right? But he was the same coming through for Rangers what a Gerrard was at Liverpool. And he was just a complete bam. The same way folk forget about Gerrard, right? At Liverpool. Remember when he came through those Everton derbies? He was diving in with 2 studs and all that and getting sent off. Ferguson was a bit like that. Had lots of ability, but was a prick, right? He couldn't control his emotions at that point. It's no surprise he got sent off that day when he knew around him was a Champions League winning midfielder, dictating things. Moravchik, he's got Zidane's hero, a Champions League winner, and the King of Kings to deal with alone, you know?
In my head, I don't know if this is 2 incidents merging into one, because in the 5-1 game that I mentioned there for a couple of before, Bob Malcolm gets sent off, and does Bob Malcolm kiss the badge? I don't know if does Barry Ferguson kiss the badge on the way off. One of them did it, and I can't remember which one it was. I'm leaning towards it was Bob Malcolm in the 5-1 game. Done it, but he kisses the badge as he goes off the Rangers crest, and it's just like, but I say Ferguson also gets sent off in this game, so obviously the 2 incidents are merging into my mind. Probably somebody in the chat will probably do that.
I think you've got to play to the gallery a wee bit and know your audience.
Yeah,
I mean, it's easy to slag all that stuff off, Phil, but I don't know. I think if it was one of our guys doing all that shit, we'd go, do you know what? In adversity, they were still thinking about us, the fans, and they were, you know what I mean? Like, I think it works 2 ways.
It does. And earlier on, Liam, you were talking about how Stefan Mahe walking off the park or running off the park, and Martin O'Neill said, if you keep going, you're getting fined. Well, it's a good thing he did keep running in this one, because in the last minute, he runs down that left-hand side, puts an inch-perfect cross over to the back post, and we talked about it in the Sutton episode, a trademark Chris Sutton finish where he slides the ball into the net. He was so good at that. The big gangly legs of his just sliding in, wasn't it? It was fantastic. Round it off perfectly. What a way.
Can I just quickly say though as well, having watched that silly season review thing today, it's his movement. His movement's like what Robbie Keane's was when he was at Celtic. You might not be able to comprehend that because of the size of them, but watching Amoruso, he takes him near post. And Amoruso commits to going right. Sutton's going for the near post flicking. Sutton commits him, and then he just peels off at the back. And he has run from, I don't know, outside, 5 yards outside the box. That's when that run starts. Honestly, it is a brilliant goal that for Sutton. But he loves a slide tackle finish. You're right.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? But it was the perfect way to round it off, wasn't it, Liam? Perfect, mate.
When we talked about Sutton as well, too, he had it in his mindset that he wanted to make Amoruso his bitch that day, right? I mean, he hated the arrogance. He didn't like the arrogance. Chris Sutton likes to be the most arrogant guy in the park, and if you're showing up with Amoruso and that, no, you're getting torched, man. And he just absolutely bullied him every time he played against him. It was great.
Do you know what's so important about that as well? Sutton's obviously came, as we spoke about, under this curtain of lack of confidence, etc. It's almost like the 6-2 game. It was defined for guys who had lack of. We spoke about Pet earlier. Speaking about Stefan Mahi Mayhem. I've been reading in the comments, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that. That's brilliant. Mahi, I think kudos to Monty on that one. Mahi Mayhem. I think, you look at guys that were out of form, out of confidence. Petrov throwing himself at a header. He wouldn't have had the confidence that year before. Bobby Petter ripping the piss out of Rickson. He wouldn't have the confidence that year before. Stefan Mahi putting in the most delicious ball, doing an overlap and run for left back at 91 minutes or 89 minutes for Sutton. Chris Sutton, a guy who'd only scored 3 goals the year before, wouldn't have the confidence to be doing these, these sort of runs where he's leading defenders one way, then it's like he's coming back to life. Everyone's coming back to life. The confidence is growing. And after the game, Paul Lambert's interviewed and he goes, it's mad what the manager does. He instills a will to win. You can see the way Lambert's saying it. He's trying to, this is the guy who's won the Champions League, and he's trying to convey it, and he can't even work out. What is this guy doing to me? What's he doing to him? It's mental. And as Henrik said after it, obviously you go into every game, you want to win. Yep. He was like, but today, when it all comes together, that's what you see. And just loads of different players for different reasons. This game was pivotal in what was then going to transgress the rest of the season.
It was indeed. Now, by the way, I mentioned a minute ago about Bob Malcolm. It was actually a guy named Scott Wilson. I'd forgotten about him. I had Bob Malcolm in my head. But yeah, people in the chat were saying it was a defender named Scott Wilson and knew that they're saying it's like so it is now. But Bob Malcolm's about to feature in
one in the 5-1.
It was Scott Wilson who was sent off in the 5-1 game, but I thought it was Bob Malcolm. But no, it's a guy named Scott Wilson, a defender there that they had then. It was Bob Malcolm as a couple of years later.
He was sent off in the 6-2?
No, Ferguson was sent off in the 6-2. What I was saying was who kissed the badge on the way off. In my head, I had a vision of Bob Malcolm walking off, and it was actually a guy named Scott Wilson that got sent off.
I can picture the strip.
Because funny enough, Bob Malcolm might be in my head because there's a goal in particular we're going to talk about during this, but he does feature because the Kings return. I said this guy's got to get his own segment. This is a record-breaking season for Henrik Larsson. 53 goals, UEFA's Golden Boot as well. Absolutely, I mean, words can't describe it. And this has been a running theme on Bustalgia. We did it obviously during the World Cup and the Euros ones. It felt like Henrik Larsson was just all over those episodes in the 2000s because he was just unbelievable. He was just doing bits all over the place and justifiably so. Now, of course, this is his record-breaking season. So yeah, let's wax a little bit of lyrical about the King, guys. Let's just talk about some of the great moments. Because obviously you get the 6-2 game, that goal will live long in the memory, but there's some other great moments along the way. It's not the only chip that he scored against Rangers. I said a second ago, Bob Malcolm gets put right on his arse in the League Cup semi-final when we beat the Rangers 3-1. He's through on goal. Malcolm tries to tackle him. He just kind of gives him the wee shoulder barge and he just falls flat in his face. Stefan Clough comes out again too much. He lifts it up over Stefan Clough, runs around him and waits for it to drop out the sky and taps it into an empty net. Phenomenal. Obviously, there's the League Cup final as well, where Chris Sutton actually gets sent off and we're down to 10 men against Kilmarnock, but Henrik Larsson just went, no, not today, boys, and just basically took the game by the scruff of the neck and scored a hat-trick in the Henrik Larsson final. Fun fact for you as well, it's one of the only 2 times that Celtic have won a trophy and went up the stairs and lifted it while still wearing their away colours, because they always change into their home colours when they lift a trophy. But there's only 2 times they've done it, which was the League Cup last season and that League Cup in 2001. Every other trophy win that we've had during, basically, I forgot. Go back and look at the pictures, because in the 04 season we won the Scottish Cup and we're wearing the green with the silver. But go and look at the pictures of them lifting the trophy.
Remember it?
Jackie McNamara and Henrik Larsson lifting it together. They put the hoops back on. But yeah,
I don't like that.
I just think keep the kit on because then you associate that kit with
the memory.
The memory.
It's the memory, Phil.
Correct.
But we'll go to Liam about the other last moments.
But yeah, guys, this is just basically a free forum. This section just talk about some of his. I mean, how can you talk about some of his moments that season? I say there's other hat tricks. He bangs in a hat trick against Aberdeen in a 6-0 win. A command that could beat them 6-0 in a league game. He bangs in a hat trick there. He also got the hat trick at Tynecastle as well. Fucking Tynecastle, hard place to go, but guy was just an absolute machine, wasn't he, Liam? Like, what can you say that's not already been said about Henrik?
I can't say anything. He's just like the greatest Celtic player ever. It's like, I think you were saying something, we were talking about it either pre-match or in the thing, it's like Bald Hendrick versus Dread Hendrick, you know?
Yes.
This was the Premier.
Both this season.
Aye, you get both this season.
Both.
Aye.
Both, right?
And, that's how we got the 50. Wait the new. You've just nailed it. Because he does up to October with the dreads, then spends the rest of the season with it. It's like the combination. That's how we got the ultimate goal return, Liam. You've just nailed it. He did both. The only season he did both.
It is actually. Aye, he cuts his hair off and scores in the first game without his dreads up at Pittodrie. And
for a 1-1 draw. Points the
Aye, that's right. He points it in the head for the celebration. But apparently in Greek, mythology, Samson, the Greek god, got his power from his hair. But honestly, when Henrik Larsson, personally, see when you ask me to just envision Henrik Larsson, I always see bald Henrik Larsson. I think peak Larsson was when he had no hair. I always envision him bald because, yeah, obviously we've got the Seville season coming up and stuff like that. And you think about those moments. Yeah, there was some great moments when it was the dreadlock one, but it's weird with Larsson because you've got pre-leg break Larsson and post-leg break. You've got pre-dreadlocks and then post-dreadlocks. There's like different specific eras. But yeah, whenever I always think of like peak Larsson, I see that sort of like the Seville season kit, bald head, that's the Larsson that I see. Yeah. But
he scored 53 goals this year, Phil.
I know. But whenever I'm thinking about it,
and he's never. It's funny, yeah.
It's weird
because even the levels we're talking about, though. That you've got a valid argument for each season. You know what I mean?
What about the people in the chat? Get that in there with when you think of Larsson, do you think of dreadlock Larsson or bald Larsson or basically short-haired Larsson? What always comes to your head first when you think about Henrik Larsson? But just let us know. Like we'll try and see what the general consensus is within the chat. But yeah, Russell. I mean, as Liam says, what more can you say about the guy? I mean, he's the best player in our lifetime, without a shadow of a doubt, that we've seen in a Celtic shirt. Like nobody's even close to it. Nobody. Right. Oh, Russell, did you?
I thought it was Liam who was going to talk.
No. I was just saying, as Liam said.
Russell. Sorry. Go ahead, Russell.
No, but well, I think the thing is, I mean, when you look at it, Henrik makes his debut. What criticism at that point? You wouldn't be allowed to criticise a Celtic player for having a honking debut these days, you know?
Aye, that's true.
Henrik earned his stripes through tough love, a lot of doubt to begin with, and yet he'd cost a minimal fee at the time. A time where Celtic were paying more for Darren Jackson what they were for Henrik Larsson, and yet Henrik was getting tough love. I think that makes a player. I think I look at the current squad guys, and I go, they've all just had the love in. Everyone's getting the love in. And you know the point is, it's the ego of people's Twitter accounts or Instagram accounts to be the first to come up with a song or have the first with the video of this new song that's aroused for a player, as opposed to putting the actual critical analysis of a player first, which is what it used to all be about. I think this is what I'm trying to work it out in my head now, because it's so difficult to remember Henrik. 97-98 season, we stopped the 10. A far, far greater landmark than stopping a Steven Gerrard team that became a Gio Van Basten title when in the last 20 they've won 5. right? It's kind of weird when it came in. See, then I don't remember Craig Burley who that season was 15 goals. I'm sure he's big fans.
Russell, mate, your microphone's breaking up massively, by the way.
Is
Like
it?
it was like a robot there talking. It was stalling.
aye,
And
the Wi-Fi
it's all right now. It's
is
actually
going,
okay now. It's actually fine.
It's the Wi-Fi. I've tried to use the mobile signal. I do apologise.
Oh,
But
okay,
I think, like, for example, when it comes to the sing songs about players, as a legendary status of players, I don't remember Craig Burley ever being a Celtic legend. No. But yeah, in his one season, when he stopped the 10, he scored 15 goals to stop the 10.
From centre midfield.
There's guys in that Celtic team right now that contributed far less in one season that are now legends. And I think that's the unfair bit. I can't be arsed with that, in fact. I think you need to earn it. And I think Henrik had to come through adversity to begin with, Liam, to get to where he was. And I also think that's kind of sums him up. I think there's a bit of defiance about his whole personality as a person. I think that's what he is. I think he is somebody who goes, I need written off. I need you to tell me it's not going to go well for me to then go to that next level. He's one of those, he's a contrarian in many ways. I just feel as well when you compare it to the modern era, all of them are now heroes because all of Twitter's sphere needs to have a song and they need to get the credit for coming up with the lyrics for the song. So really it's about these people's egos and also about the dive in for Ange and the love in for Ange. People can't accept any of the players. Might be good players, but not yet greats. Not yet greats. Henrik started with adversity, worked his way up to a great. Guys in that Celtic team right nowadays, any greats in there? Do me a favour.
I'd agree with that one because speaking of greats, though, we're just going to the 53 goal season. Well, number 50, the next round number of all the places to score it, of all the teams to score it against, as we mentioned earlier on, we go to Ibrox. We're already league champions at this point. Rangers, obviously, their ego is bruised, but they want to try and prove a point and maybe stick it to us here, but not on this day. Oh, no. At this point in time, we hadn't won at Ibrox in 6 years. It was quite a record we were chalking up at Ibrox, the record you don't want. It was like, this had to end somewhere. But yeah, we talked about it in the Noble Moravchik episode because Lubo scores 2 that day, coming on as a sub. The second goal in particular, he absolutely rinsed Fernando Rickson. Not the first time Fernando got rinsed that season by a Celtic winger. But yeah, obviously the third goal, we mentioned it earlier on, but I say of all the places to score it, Liam, of all the teams to get it against, just the callousness to go round Stefan Goss, who he'd been mugging off all season. I say some of the goals he'd scored against them were ridiculous. But yeah, this one, going round the keeper, at a cute angle, it's getting smaller every single time, and he just slots it away. And say Sean Maloney, he was thinking about it, but I think he backs away at the last second. Imagine if he'd stolen that one. But yeah, number 50 was scored at Ibrox. See, we go on and get 53. But yeah, the next round number of 50. I mean, the idea of like 50 goals in a football season or competition, that's Lionel Messi and Ronaldo numbers from a couple of years ago. People talk about, I think there's a year, maybe like mid-2010s, where Messi got like 60-something goals in all competitions in a season. Larsson got 53. That's not far off of Messi's numbers. Mental. Absolutely insane. Oh, and again, if Messi scores 53 goals in a season, it's like, oh, wow, the greatest player ever. It's worldwide news. Here's Henrik Larsson playing in, for little old Celtic.
One of my European Golden Boot, remember?
I know.
I remember it. The Golden Boot system was like, at this point, it was 3 points for a goal in Europe's top 5 leagues. And like for Scottish League, it was like 1.5 points. So you effectively had to score double. Those 53 goals won him a European Golden Boot.
It'd be fun to see who the top 5 was that year for the Golden Boot. To see who Larsson beat out at that point,
It's frightening. Oh. And that's when you would start going, he was the fucking, do you know what I mean? He was the king.
Let's see if I can. I'll see if I can find it.
Shearer was scoring goals then.
Aye.
I would think Jardel, Peletta, I would think Batistuta, Ronaldo, Michael Owen. Michael Owen would have been high up. Maybe even, would Ruud have been injured that season at PSV? But I mean, like, this is serious company. And as I say, the point system is designed to be against you. If you're in a provincial league like the Scottish League, it's insulting.
I can't get a full list of it, but the names that you just listed off there, Russell, are very accurate to the time, and that's the type of players. Just look at the ones that I mentioned at the start, like Batstuter and Hasselbank that were around at the time scoring goals, and it's like...
But they're getting double points for their goals, or nearly double, whatever it was. The odds are stacked against you. Henrik winning that Golden Boot was an absolute fucking success story for Scottish football.
Was.
Let alone anything else. And it was an FU, and I think there was a bit of Henrik again. We talk about the defiance, Liam. I think when he goes up to get that trophy that day, it's O'Neill's first season in this Martin O'Neill month. Martin O'Neill must be going, look what I've fucking created. You all thought he was good. I know he was great. Yep. And I think there was a quote like that. Was there not a quote after the first game? He said something like, I heard you were good. I didn't know you were great. And Henrik goes up to lift that Golden Boot. The pride that the club would have felt, including Martin. Aye. But I think from Henrik's point of view, genuinely, I just think the defiance. That's all I think he felt. I think Henrik has that. It's an ego that I like. Yeah, Liam, because it's not an ego that's all about Henrik Larsson. It's almost an ego that's been protective about Celtic, protective about Scottish football. Does that make? That sounds strange.
Look what his mindset must have been like when he broke his leg. It looked like it was one of the career enders. By the looks of it when you see it. I still haven't seen it. I looked away, couldn't watch it. But then when he comes back and you've got a new manager, and all of a sudden you've got like another Golden Boot winner in your team as well, and Chris Sutton. Chris Sutton had already won a Golden Boot. And so there, all of a sudden, he's playing with a Golden Boot.
I know a European one, but an English one, aye?
Mm-hmm. Aye, right. Fair enough. Aye.
But still, the standard.
Very high standard.
English Golden Boot's massive.
Aye.
So I think he's always one of the guys that, it's like, I'll do my talking on the pitch. I'll show you what I do. Don't judge me till you watch what I do. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to write columns to the Daily Mail or tell people this is going to be my season. No, he came back for a broken leg, and he just, I'm not going to let this beat me. And he came back better, bigger, better, stronger, faster, more goals, more Gallus. And I think, he's seen what happened, with Viduka and all that as well. And when Martin O'Neill coming in and forging a team together and players getting better, it's like, you could see he probably wanted to be part of this. Who knows? He might have been off. If it wasn't O'Neill, he might have been off at the end of that year.
I think so. I think there's a huge, huge chance. Now, it's a fact that when he signs for Man United, what was that? Was that the tail end of 2006?
The 07 season.
So he joins in January the 1st, 07, but they announced it in December 06. And he basically now is consequently saying, well, this is the second time Alex has approached me.
Aye. Yeah, he did say that.
So you can then decipher when Sir Alex has approached and somehow Martin O'Neill, sorry, not Martin O'Neill, Henrik's been able to say no to that. Now, you tell me whether that was Dr. Joe convincing him not to sign for Man U. You tell me if it was John Barnes convincing him not to sign for Man U. Or you can decide that it was Martin O'Neill that decided. So, see to that, I think that's phenomenal.
Right.
It's definitely O'Neill, 100%. There's no way that he would have said to 100%, man. The guy, he's got that aura around him. There's no way that you're going to say no to him. Say the guy's management skills. As you said earlier on, he'll have told Larsson, in that 6-2 game, you're the best in the world. Just tell him, make him believe it. And he would 100% have been staying for O'Neill. There's no way that Barnes or Venglos, no disrespect to them, would have been able to convince him to knock back Man United to stay at Celtic. 100% O'Neill. But guys, we will now go on to the final segment and make mine a treble, because this is it. We go on and win the domestic treble for the season. So we'd already won the League Cup. Henrik Larsson final, scores all 3 goals in it, beating Kilmarnock back in March. We wrap up the league title on April the 7th, 2001, and Tommy Johnson has the unique accolade on his CV of, despite not playing that many games for Celtic over the 5-6 years I think he was with the club due to injuries, he has got a goal in a cup final, a winning goal in a cup final essentially, because it was a goal that wrapped up, and a goal that won us the league because he scored the winning goal against St Mirren that day. So I say quite a unique accolade for him, because I don't think there's many players at any clubs across history that will have something like that, where you didn't really play that much, but you've actually got a cup final winning goal and a league title deciding goal to your name. So fair play to Tommy Johnson. But yeah, he was like definitely down the pecking order that season. I think even Butchell was getting games ahead, but again, a lot of us due to injuries for Johnson. You know, he had a lot of injury problems, spent more time in the physio room.
I think both players were pretty pivotal. I think pivotal in O'Neill's first season. I think Butchell at the start looked like he was the rising star that we'd hoped.
Aye.
And Tommy Johnson, you know, you watch the season review, the amount of goals he does score. He always does a mad comedy celebration as well. Almost like
it's the cigar celebration he does and stuff.
He's always
like
just taking the piss. He's always like, "Oh, there's my mates." It was weird, but I don't know. There was a bit of rotation then. You know, if you look at the League Cup, which obviously you're saying the Henrik Larsson final, but if you actually look at the teams we played to go away to Tynecastle, Healy, Jamie Smith, Stephen Craney, Tommy Mark Butchell, all starting those games. O'Neill was blooding those youngsters then, you know, and that could have went Pete Tong at Tynecastle. Let's be honest. Of course it could.
The 5-2 game, isn't it? They win 5-2 away at Tynecastle.
Bumped them, but I think even Tommy Johnson played I think he plays quite a big part that season compared to the other ones, which you're right, were injury ravaged. But see, when we signed him, he was another one that came with a bit of reputation.
He did. Aston Villa, £3 million we signed him for.
That's no mug signing the Tommy Burns era.
Nope.
That's not chump change like.
There was a lot expected of Tommy Jones, but I say just years of injury just ravaged him. He spent more time in the physio room, but he was a good player when he was on it. I say he's got that unique accolade where he could say, well, I scored a goal that won them the league and also I won them a cup as well. So I say that's a trivia question maybe for the future. I'll need to dig into that one, see if there's many that have got that. That's the celebration he done. I remember him doing that one as well.
He always did a comedy celebration, but I think at times, I wonder if at times, Liam, some guys like Tommy Johnson, the reason they maybe not last under O'Neill is O'Neill builds everything, Liam, right, on the significance of this. This is what it is. But I think with Tommy, you kind of just send him at the cubicles, go for a pee, mate. Because I don't think, you know, if you put the significance on Anki, he might not get it. He's just scored our winning title goal, which is against the Goliath of a Rangers team at this point. As Phil's illustrated tonight, all the signings they've made in the past 2 summer transfer windows, you're talking nearly 100 million quid's worth, right? We were 21 points behind the year before. We're about to win the league in April. This is a joke, but not actually a joke. This is so significant in Celtic's history. And Tommy Johnson scores. He's scoring the winning goal. He takes the worst first touch ever. All you should feel, see, after that first touch when he scores, is like running away, almost crying with relief. Instead, he's doing comedy again. And I just wonder. I wonder if that's like O'Neill's looking at him going, "Love it, but you're not going to make the cut." And it's no funny.
I think it's all part of having that, what you said earlier about Brian Clough's team and that's the camaraderie. You need to have that one sort of outlet as well where we're going to put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and there's always going to be that one guy in the change room and that is going to take the pressure off you by having it, because you always see people talking about Tommy Johnson, what a laugh he was and how he was great in the dressing room, and I think you need that in these sort of teams where, you know, you need that wee bit of a joker as well, just so that you can have the, you know, the tough emotional times, but enjoy those times as well where, you know, it just took all the, you know, it's just like, we've won it, you know, and then for him to, you know, celebrate in that way,
I think O'Neill's tearing his hair out though when he sees that, Liam. In my mind, I'm going, O'Neill's like, get back to that halfway line.
You remember what was he said? Do you remember when you remember O'Neill displayed what do you call him? Alan Thompson to the press.
Right.
What was it? He said, was it when he signed Neil Lennon? And he says, I had to find somebody uglier than Alan Thompson. That was partly when he unveiled Neil Lennon. He was like, we have to try and find somebody uglier than Alan Thompson.
Well, it's funny that, though, because, again, you were talking about the similarities, right? So Neil Lennon does a mad interview when he's joined in a denim jacket sitting in the stands at Paradise, right? And Lennon says, you know, the team's doing really well. Obviously, they've got better under the manager. And with a dead straight face goes, I know they've now got a lot better now I've arrived. I think there's and then he moves on to like, I think they're a physical aspect. I'm like, did he just literally say with a straight face, I know they've now got better because I've arrived?
Aye.
There's a bit of me that kind of goes, I think that's why you've been signed.
Respect
and
it, man.
I don't think he's saying it cocky. But that's why I remember the next year, I mean, you know, O'Neill turning around to Hartson, you know. He says, John, get warmed up because you're coming off.
Well, there's one about Clough there. Read that one, Russell. A Clough called John Robertson the Tramp. Get the ball, son, and pass it to the Tramp. He will do the rest. So, again, we find like that, the way Clough would talk to his players, and then the way Martin O'Neill would say, it's, again.
You see the traits, eh? But this is a tough school. This is a tough school. Aye. This is the school that whilst Tommy Johnson, I think you're right, Liam, that joker in the room, the joker card, if you like, is going to work so far, but see for it to go to the next level, we phase him out. We bring in a John Hartson who's kicked a guy's head in training and stuff. But O'Neill knows, I know now the school I've built. You'll not be the big man in that changing room, John. You'll not be the big man in that changing room. In fact, you're going to try and fit in with them. And I think that's what happened with Hartson. He realised, this is the worst bunch of bastards ever. and then the jokes start becoming satire. They start becoming like Chris Sutton going, oh, guys, we're going to get beat today. Oh, you're all hopeless. We're going to get beat. No one's in form. And like everyone came going, what sort of psychology is this? And I think the banter probably got a bit darker as the team had to get better. And I think that was the final maybe episode of having that comedy character in the dressing room. But I still do think it's an iconic celebration. It's almost like, how do you not know what you're doing right now, Tommy? Like,
significant.
Like, surely, like that first touch goes under his studs. Like the relief that should be outpouring of him is like winning a World Cup. You should be like, I still scored. Like, instead, I think that's comedy gold.
It's so accurate, Russell. So accurate the way you're doing that. I can just see it in my head now. But you're right, because we finished 21 points the season before behind Rangers. We're about to win the league by 15 points this season. A 36-point swing. That would be. My maths was right. Yeah.
Aye.
No. Aye. So it's 21 and 15, 36, isn't it?
Aye.
36-point swing that we've went from. So it's an astounding achievement. And this is a real juggernaut Rangers sides. I say that I've got all sorts of stars in it. Much better league as well in terms of other opposition, but we've turned it round and we've won the league. So now we're in a position to win our first treble since 1969. Nowadays, trebles are a dime a dozen, as they would say in the USA. But yeah, it's back then this would have been I think it was our third treble we were about to win in our history. And the last one before that was 1969, and the one before that would have been 67 when we won everything that season. But yeah, I mean, that shows you how far apart trebles were. But the team that stands in the way, it's not Rangers in the cup final. They'd been knocked out by Dundee United earlier in the competition. It was Hibernian. It was an all green and white final that day. Alex McLeish's Hibernian, I believe, with Frank Soze in the team, and Russell Latapy. Again, you're talking about other teams. Well, this is a guy that won the European Cup with Marseille. Frank Soze. Unbelievable. Did they not have Dela Cruz, Ulysses Dela Cruz as well? Remember him? Yeah.
Became, I think, Ecuador's most record cap player at one point. Russell Latipe was the guy that Dwight York thought was better than him. Like, the other teams are far stronger than they are now. Far stronger.
Aye, it's astounding. I'd say Soze and all, but see, he was wasn't the captain when Marseille won. It was Deschamps that was the captain that night. But
shambles that he's playing for him.
Mental. Oh man!
I just think that highlights as well the big gap. Just quickly, Sean Barlow, who's been really active in the chat, and I love that.
Good.
Sean,
very good.
Sean's brilliant on Bustalgia, he is.
Yeah.
But he says Hearts, remember he played for the Crazy Gang.
He did.
Give me Martin O'Neill's squad goes down, and look at Vinnie Jones and that Martin O'Neill team batter the Crazy Gang every day of the week. A different level, in my opinion, of men compared to want to be, oh yeah, you up for it. That Martin O'Neill team wasn't like that. They just fucking we'll see.
Regarding the Crazy Gang thing, I think Wimbledon were more the Crazy Gang in that sort of late 80s team that won the FA Cup. I think that's where that came from. By the time Hartson was playing for them in the 90s, that element was kind of gone from them at that point.
Still a few with Joe Kinnear. Remember Joe Kinnear?
Joe Kinnear, yeah.
The Crazy Gang element kind of came back, but I still give me Martin O'Neill's team against that lot. Easy days. Yeah. Easy days. He created monsters, Brad Douglas battering Thiago Motta and all that. I mean, come on.
We'll get to that. I want to know 304 episode when we get to it, but that's an iconic one, that. But yeah, we're in the final. We're playing Hibs, the all green and white final. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, relating to the question, Lobo Moravcik goes off injured after 14 minutes, and Jackie McNamara comes on and plays the centre midfield, because I've been sort of deployed there a few times that season under Martin O'Neill, and he actually scores the opening goal about 5 minutes before half time. Unlikely first goal scorer. But then the second half, Henrik Larsson with an absolutely delicious finish, to say the least. First time finish, mate. Just like a Giacomakis one,
An FTF.
Just an FTF, mate. Pings it right in the top corners. It comes across from the edge of the 18-yard area. It's his left foot into it. He just absolutely swings his left foot at it. Pings it right in the top corner. Hibs goalkeeper with absolutely no chance at all. And then he wraps up the scoring with a penalty kick late on for us to win 3-0. And wrap up our first domestic treble since 1969, and a beautiful sun-soaked Hampden that day. Phenomenal scenes, but a special season and a special way to end it, guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm laughing at Monty. Me and Monty have patter off air, by the way, just so you know. He's saying the only guy who would get an O'Neill's team, Josip Juranovic. He's at it, don't worry.
Aye. He's a Croatian international, though, so I mean, you've got to take that into account.
That's why he's put in Croatian international, guy. Of course.
Aye. But yeah, it was again, it goes without saying, just what a season, what a way to, what a debut, first season as manager for Martin O'Neill to come in and do that, to turn that around the way that he did. Henrik Larsson, 53 goals, just everybody, just pulling in the one direction and wrapping up the trophies the way we did. And in the end, 38 league games played, 31 wins, 4 draws, 3 losses, goal difference of plus 61. The League Cup was secured with scoring 15 goals along the way, conceding 5. And the Scottish Cup was won with 17 goals scored and conceding 5. But yeah, again, Russell, try and sum it up as best you can, and we'll get Liam's final thoughts on it.
I still think it's the biggest turnaround season.
Yep.
And I think it's fantastic that right now we're in an era where there was a huge turnaround season last year. And I think there's undeniably a clamour by the younger generation of fans to find heroes that we can now discuss, Phil. But these guys didn't become heroes just because that one season. It was what that then became of them that we can now look back at that first season and see the formation of the legendary status become. Whereas I think right now we're in an era, everyone gets the legendary status because of one season, not with the it being cemented, shall we say. But what we undeniably seen in this year was Henrik cement himself, which we all thought before his leg break as one of the best strikers in Europe, to become the Golden Boot winner, arguably Europe's most lethal predator based on the trophy he wins at the end of the season. We've seen undeniably when you sign a Golden Boot winner from England, EPL winner, and you bring them up to Scotland, they tend to do okay. And what we also seen was Martin O'Neill have an ability to turn guys you thought might have been average Joes into worldies, if not for a season, maybe or two. And what you also seen as well was a fan base, a board, and a management team completely united, speculating to accumulate by the board in terms of fees, fans with a buy-in into a management team, and a management team that galvanised players like you wouldn't believe. Ain't that just the perfect picture, Liam Greenlaw?
Aye. You know, so for me, I really, really enjoyed this season. This season for me, I had a 4-year-old, well, still a boy, but my boy was 4 years old. And so it was the first time I was getting to share Celtic with him, and I was so excited and so proud that this was going to be his Celtic team. You know, I remember a year later, he had a project at school where he had to talk about his pets, and he talked about all the fish in his fish tank and his fishes, and his teacher says, well, what's your fish name? It was like Stilian, Lubo, Henke, Bobo, and it was like, and I was just laughing. She says, oh, those are unusual names for fishes, you know. Favorite Celtic players, you know. And I think that was it. It set up a Celtic for a lot of people that got used to seeing a Celtic team winning, got used to seeing a Celtic team that was hungry, but also it was a sophisticated Celtic team as well. This wasn't a team this was a team that had quality from the midfield to the front, and we had some world superstars, I think, in that team. And I think when O'Neill came, he just put the plan in place that all of a sudden we were optimistic again for the future. And that's the one thing I love about Celtic, you know, is going and having that optimism when you've got a good team. And I think we've still got that right now. We're going through a wee bit of a speed wobble right now, and I'm just as critical on that, a lot of you guys here as well. But when I go back to that O'Neill team, that was my favourite Celtic team, and that was my favourite season. Just everything pulled together. We got Larsson back. We got this brand new Petrov back. Sutton, well, next season, but everything. And it was
and for it to be a treble from that near 100 million assembled Dick Advocat dominating 2 seasons in a row team, it's not like O'Neill just won a couple of the domestic treble. You know, you go, you know, and trebles, as we find out, you know, don't let the quadruple treble fool you. You know, O'Neill's treble was what, the 3rd ever in our history?
3rd ever in our history, aye.
And to do that against the avalanche of dominance, fucking incredible. Incredible. Sensational, you could say, Phil.
Sensational. Extraordinary. Extraordinary. You were extraordinary. Extraordinary. But no, that answers the final question. We always put in the final word, and we've talked about it before, but you've just answered it there, Russell, and yourself, Liam. Just again, the comparisons. We've heard it and seen it. Obviously, Ange took over a broken Celtic team a year ago, turned it round after losing the league by 25 points. We ended up winning the league, and it's phenomenal, boys G. But this turnaround, I say, that juggernaut Rangers team, 21 points in front the season before, to win all the trophies in 2001 and be 15 points in front of them, scalping them 6-2 along the way, beating them 3-0 on their own patch. It was an extraordinary time. It really was. It was an incredible time to be a Celtic fan. An amazing season, and one that is, you know, always going to be, you know, marked as like a landmark season, like one of those ones you put a flag on the timeline. Like, this is one 2001. You know, it'll be talked about years down the line. Still, many years from now, people will still go back to this season and talk about the memories of it, because it was something else. But that wraps up our 2000-2001 season. This is the first part of Martin O'Neill month. Next week we'll be doing 01-02. Now, before I go back to the trivia, I've seen earlier on a question in the chat for you, Liam. See the Robert Burns picture over your shoulder? Did you put that yourself?
I did.
Nice, because somebody in the chat was asking earlier on, and I saw it going up, and I was like, yeah, good work, mate.
I think it was Jerry Coyle saying, can we not do a segment on that Robbie Burns picture behind Liam? You're an artist, Liam, mate.
Absolute
That's what the
talent,
Punk
mate.
Duck Warlord is. That's my artist name.
Ah,
The Punk Duck
On Instagram,
Warlord.
Duck Warlord. On there, you'll see loads of Celtic stuff and that. And I like doing paintings of Scotch. Do a lot of Benny Lynch, the boxer, and that. His
aye.
grandson lived here in Vancouver. Wee Benny. Young Benny.
Those who were, those who were on the bus for the beginning will remember the Double Doon show graphics we used to get with poor Willie hanging about with Henrik Larsson, Ange Postecoglou with a cigar. It was all brilliant. Billy Connolly in the background.
Yep.
I mean, the art's ridiculous to what you're doing, Liam, mate. And you're happy to promote it any time in the bus, mate.
Oh, appreciate that. Thanks, guys.
No, I'd seen the comment going up earlier on saying, is that picture of Robert Burns behind Liam? Did he paint that himself? So, yes, he did indeed. Tell her that. There you go. Talented man here. Fantastic, man. But trivia. We need to end on trivia, guys.
I'm going to chuck names.
Right, okay, so just a recap for the question in case anybody came in late and missed it. The question relates around something that happened in the Scottish Cup final. So in the final this year, 2001, Jackie McNamara came off the bench and scored. Can you name all the other Celtic substitutes who came on in a cup final and scored this century?
There's four.
There's four.
I've got one. I know one. Gordon Strachan's favourite.
Yeah.
Dion Dublin.
Yeah, it was indeed
There
Dion
was
Dublin.
no way he started that game.
2006 League Cup final, the Jimmy John's final, Dion Dublin did.
You got one, Liam?
Score.
James Forrest.
Yes, the 2015 League Cup final.
But I've got
Ronnie.
8 names here. I'm ticking off my names as if I've only got 4 down. I've got 1, 2, 3, 6 names. So I think it's fair because it's a difficult question.
2015 League Cup final.
Did Jean-Joël Perrier-Doumbé start that game?
He started that game. I checked that one, mate. I know. He started the game.
Okay. Tom Rogic.
Yes, Tom Rogic came off the bench because Kieran Tierney broke his jaw and Tom Rogic replaced him when Jayden Stockley.
Right. There's no way Tom Rogic is out sprinting for the ball at the 94th minute if he started the game. It's just common sense. Common sense takes you back to the time of that goal, and you go, Tom does look awfully fresh at that moment in time. For a man who runs in slippers and has the energy tank of a goldfish, he's doing all right there. Oh, wait now. He must have been a sub. Okay, Liam, have you got any other suggestion?
I've got one there. Sean Maloney.
No, Maloney played in that one. The same one that Dublin scored in. Maloney started that game.
He started, right?
Yeah.
So
one more.
Have you got Russell?
I've got Darren O'Day.
No, Darren O'Day started that game as well. The 2009 League Cup final.
Disgrace. I mean, that is how bad was Celtic then.
I think Lee Naylor was injured for that final, and that's why Darren O'Day started.
Darren O'Day starting cup finals. I mean, whoever the manager then, don't feel sorry for Ange Postecoglou now. When Darren O'Day is starting cup finals against Rangers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. You see, was murder.
Let me think. Who else? Mark Burchill.
Difficult.
No, the fourth one is a really tricky one, I will say. It's a well-known player, but it's a very easy one to forget.
Okay. So it's not Aidan McGeady.
No, Aid McGeady played
He scored in that
final. Scored in that final as well, yeah.
Okay, Vida Reset then.
Vida Reset started that final as well.
Bastard.
Is it the Tony Mowbray season? No, we didn't win with Tony Mowbray, did we?
No, don't ask him the clues yet. Don't ask the bastard.
Also, it goes through saying, make sure your comments are off because people are throwing in answers.
Look at the state of me right now and throwing names at. Trust me, the comments are off.
Alan Thompson.
No, Thompson did score in the 05 final, but he started. It was a goal really early in that final, the one against Dundee United. Free kick under the wall from out wide.
Did you say an obvious player?
It's a very well-known player. It's not like an obscure reserve or something. It's a well-known player, but it's a very easy one to forget, and you'll understand why when you get the answer.
Bobo?
No, Bobo started the 02 final. Aye. The one where he takes his shirt off and he's an absolute monster.
I'm just thinking of finals now, big boy. Fuck.
Harrison.
No. Hartson scored in the final, but again started.
Do you remember he had the phase where he used to stand off the pitch when we were taking a set piece? So he would go past the post and stand. The 0102 final, for example.
Right.
And the rule was you can't be offside if you're off the park.
Oh, right. Okay.
It was naughty what he was doing, and then he'd come back on once the ball was in play. Aye. 0102 final, I'm sure. We don't watch it back because we got beat. Right, boys. I'm itching because I can see in the wee bubble 53 comments, Phil. This is killing me.
I will bring up this comment. Oh, Jerry Coyle's just donated £20 to the channel. Well done, Jerry.
Unbelievable, Jerry, mate.
There you go. So I'll bring up that comment. I won't bring up any of the answers because some people have got it right. I'm not going to bring it up yet.
Could have been another sub. Who could have been another sub? I think we need Nira. We need the manager, Phil. We need the manager.
Neil Lennon.
Ooh.
There's 2 Neil Lennon spells, of course, isn't there?
Oh, that is not.
Anthony Stokes, though.
No. Stokesy played in a final with Hooper, but Hooper scored 2 that day, and I think Ledley scored the one against Hibs with the black kit on. No, he started that game against Motherwell. He started the absolute belter of a goal and the pissing rain.
But he wasn't really in finals, Lennon, first time round. He wasn't, though. He was in finals second time round. Oh, my God. Ryan Christie?
No, Christie scored in cup finals, but he didn't come on as a substitute in any of them.
Oh, fuck. I hate this. I hate not knowing.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. You need to give us one more clue, which is make it obvious just so you can tickle our balls with it, basically.
No fans in the stadium saw it.
Yeah.
Now you understand why it's such an easy
Lee
one
Griffiths.
to forget. Lee Griffiths, 3 each draw with Hearts.
Lee Griffiths. And you thought he'd won it?
Yes, he did. At the corner.
Again, yeah.
Did Scott Brownlow throw himself at that, like with a header, an absolutely amazing diving header? And Lee Griffiths got the rebound? Aye, that's
correct.
Right. It was. So the 4 answers were
70 comments.
Aye. Chris had said it's Griff FFS, but yeah, many people said Griff, they were getting it, but I was quite enjoying just, stringing the guys along there.
But that's what it's meant to be like.
So yeah, just recapping that one. Your 4 answers were Dion Dublin in the 2006 League Cup final, James Forrest 2015 League Cup final, Tom Rogic 2017 Scottish Cup final, and Lee Griffiths in the 2020, the elongated 2020 season Scottish Cup final because of coronavirus. Thanks for that one, Corona. But yeah, that's your 4 answers. That wraps up the show. So Russell, over to you, mate. What is coming up on the bus this weekend, my friend?
We will do some post-match pish on Saturday. However, it's going to be a bit later. I'm working tomorrow, so unfortunately, we're unable to go live mid-afternoon. However, I think we'll have 1 or 2 available. It might even be Liam, yourself, that's available. And we'll go live at 6:30 UK time, Liam. If you're still about, that's brilliant. If you're not free, don't worry. And hopefully with 1 or 2 others, I think Terry Robb should be making his long-awaited PMP return. As always, Phil's got the open invitation to come because he's just used to seeing Phil as much as me these days, which is great. But we will be doing post-match pitch tomorrow, hopefully after a massive Celtic win. Beyond that, what's the next plan? Will there be a Sunday session? I don't know. It might depend if I get back in the mix. If not, I might go walk the dog. But the Monday Club will certainly be back. Jonathan Boyce, as you've seen last night, is back fit and firing.
I've got a good sudden death for you on Monday night,
by the way. Sudden death, the new feature on the Monday Club with the Boise Bills is one not to be missed because that will end up becoming pretty competitive once we start racking up who's ahead of who. I won't like that, Obviously, him and Mark Kearney were involved last time. So as far as I'm concerned, it's 0-0, Phil.
Between you and Jonathan, Mark's kind of...
But that'll become a series. That will become a series. Yep. Who wins that? Massive shout out to Jerry Cole. That donation's far too kind, mate. We really appreciate that. Just as much appreciate the efforts Phil Mcginlay puts in to do these amazing shows. And of course, the input you get for Liam, unrivaled, mate. Unrivaled. Appreciate it for you both.
Superb. Thank you very much, sir. And as I say, next week we are into the 2001-2002 season. Celtic's first official venture into the Champions League and the new format after it changed in 92-93. So we've got that to look forward to. And Rangers have a managerial change, which is going to have a bit of an effect on us going forward because for some reason, Alex McLeish had the Indian side over Martin O'Neill for a while.
Still
and I don't understand.
But still finished
Aye,
third.
they did do
forget
that. Yeah.
Finished third.
Yeah, that did happen. But that's all to come next week. So we will be talking about the 2001-2002 season. So, yeah, come on, fan. Well, John Hartson also joins as well. So I'm looking forward to talking about Big Bad John because he's not somebody we've really talked about yet so far on the bus and on Bustalgia. All the years we seem to do don't really have much John Hartson involvement. So it'd be good to go on about his Celtic career. But,
Liam, you'll need to get your Instagram link sent to us so we can put it on the wee ticker bar at the bottom.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah.
Or we'll get Phil to sort it so he gets a wee bit at the bottom right instead of Hoops Raffles.
Brilliant. Aye,
All right, of course we'll do that for you, mate. That's fine.
Excellent.
All right. And then it's, what was that? 20% commission. That's really kind.
Punk Duck Warlord on Instagram. You can find me. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
No worries.
And
No
before
worries.
we go, one more time for the road, guys. Everybody sound it. It's the Martin O'Neill klaxon because it is indeed Martin O'Neill month. So yes, indeed. As I say, if we did that all night, we'd be on to about 2 a.m. if we stopped every time we mentioned his name. But yeah, guys, we're out of here now. So it's been a pleasure, and we will reconvene next week for part 2 of Martin O'Neill.
Love that, Phil. Brilliant job, mate.
Fantastic. Excellent, guys. Come on to Celtic tomorrow. Come on.
Hey.
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan.